Thank you, everybody.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. We're going to start with a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Sunshine law notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person and through the Zoom meeting platform being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this regular council meeting of May 8th, 2023 is available by call-in phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions or comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question or comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting was included in a schedule of meetings which was adopted by resolution number 2023-13 and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger on January 6, 2023, posted on the Borough website, the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Borough Clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Paul. Here. Bowie. Here. Haas. Here. Barbara.
Here.
Neff. Here. Rodriguez.
Here.
Great. Chief and the entire force, thank you for being here. Is there a request to be made tonight?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, tonight I come before you particularly asking you to appoint Sean Lanigan as a police patrolman. It was a tough process, going on for about a month. We had many candidates and I think we got the best of the best. Sean comes from Camden City. He's there about 3 years and he lives in Monmouth County and he was looking to come to a more local type police department, a smaller police department. And I think he's going to fit in very well for all good things about him. And I think he's the best of the best. I asked you tonight to appoint him.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Before I ask Allison for a roll call, anyone have any questions or comments on this?
Congratulations.
We're talking resolution number 2023-121. Hire police patrolman Sean Lanigan. Allison, may I please have a roll call? Oh, wait, do I have a motion?
Motion second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Paul.
Yes.
Bowie. Yes. Hutch.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Neff. Yes. Rodriguez.
Yes.
He's here tonight with his mom, his wife Kelly, his 2 daughters, and his his cousin, who's retired chief from Elizabeth. But they'd like to come up.
Is she giving the oath?
No, I don't believe so.
New Jersey, County of Monmouth. I, Sean Lanigan, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state, under the authority of the people, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform the duties of patrolman according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
He puts it away, someone catch it.
I'd like to thank the mayor and council for supporting us and allowing this to happen. Thank you. I also would like to thank the men and women of the Fair Police Department. They're all here tonight. And thanks for everything you do. I know it's been a tough couple years with COVID and sort of this anti-police rhetoric, but we get through it and be better than ever. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank everybody on the council here for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank all my fellow officers from the Fairhaven Department. You guys have been welcoming since the first time I've met any of you. I'd like to thank my family. Without them, I couldn't do what I do on a daily basis. And thank you, Mary, for being here. You've been instrumental in my journey as a police officer.
Fairhaven got a good job.
Congratulations.
Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's officially over. See that?
Okay. Moving along, I'm going to make a brief statement on the McCarter Pond hydro raking project. The Borough of Fairhaven awarded a bid for the hydro raking of McCarter Pond in December of 2022. The contractor mobilized in early April. However, to date, the vegetative waste removed from the pond has been well below the anticipated quantity, which is very concerning to the borough. Based on the timing of the upcoming fish spawning season, at the borough's request, the contractor will be demobilizing within the next 2 weeks. The borough will be working with our consulting engineer and their pond specialist to determine the best course of action going forward. Regardless of that determination, the borough does not anticipate additional work in the pond until the fall. The borough anticipates discussing the plans to complete this project in public once we have worked through the details with our professionals and we are comfortable with the related bidding considerations. The borough will not be discussing this project further until we have a plan in place. Thank you. Moving along to workshop session. Lawn sign request from Anna Nigerian for the Green Yard project. Is Emma here? Okay. You can stand up.
So I'm a junior at our grade, next I'm a chair, I'll be those of you who might not, so nice to see you again, Ellie. So the Green Yard Project is a closer to zero pesticide initiative working toward uniting our community. So basically the way it works is community members will sign up to join the project, taking a pledge as on our website. And doing so that they are now part of the project and will receive a lawn sign put on their lawn saying that they are part of the project and are committed to the community. Basically, what I would like is to put out 9 lawn signs around Fairhaven. I had previously had them out, but had not thought about the approval process, and I apologize for that. But they will be placed in areas such as McCarter Pond, Fairhaven Fields, and other high traffic areas in order to get the word out.
Okay. So Emma, what I'm about to say is probably the most uncomfortable thing I've had to say to anyone since I've become mayor, and I mean that. I'm not in favor of this. And it's not at all because of what you're trying to do. In fact, I want to sit here and commend you and tell you how fantastic it is and amazing. And I could think of 1,000 other adjectives. And I'm even going to offer to put one of your signs on my private property, on my house, because I think what you're doing is great. I think it sets a bad precedent if we're going to start placing signs like this on public property. And it's hard for us to set good precedent if we allow one type of sign that fits this bill and not another. And I can't predict who's gonna walk in the future. And that's just my opinion. I mean, there's gonna be other people up here and they're free to make their own judgments on this. And if you get 4 votes, then, you're free to do it. But that's my personal opinion. But I just want to say again, how impressed I am that you took this whole thing and you went with it. And I feel so terrible right now that that's the way I feel.
Thank you, I
Okay.
understand.
All right.
Thank you for the suggestion of putting it on private property. That was the backup plan, so I appreciate that.
Could I make a suggestion, though? I have no problem with signs on private property. I just would like, if possible, to reduce the amount of time, because we usually don't allow signs up for the entire summer. It's usually maybe for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, today.
So if perhaps you could, shorten the timeline, I would be very much in favor.
Do you have like a suggested timeline that would be in?
Well, I think at the beginning of the summer is better than the end, because at the beginning of the summer is when residents make those decisions about how to fertilize their lawn. So maybe for the month of June, we're already in May. I mean, we're a third of the way through May. So perhaps for the month of June, we could do it to raise awareness of our residents.
Yeah, definitely think June is a good time to do it, as well as possibly now, if that is.
Or you could do it now. You could do it May 15th to June 15th.
May I ask a question to the council and to the mayor? How is this different from something like Dormer Dreams?
So in my discussions today, I see Dermer Dreams as a charitable cause. So I do think that's a little bit different. And I think what I termed was, if it's an activity, an event, or a non-confrontational charitable cause, I think it fits the bill for personally. It doesn't mean that I'm right. That's my personal opinion on what fits a public land. I see this more as I'm going to use the term cause, and I don't think causes are what's right for public property. And I think it could lead to problems in the future, not necessarily with this, but with other causes that could come up and lead to dissension between residents. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I mean, that's what I love about the Fairhaven community is, the ability for everyone to get along and it'd be good. So I'll mention again, in no way am I,
No, I understand.
I think it's fantastic what you're doing.
But let's say Emma partnered with the Green Team, who would probably be highly supportive of this, something like this. Would that be different then, if the Green Team was the one posting this?
That's a good question. I don't know. Have we done that before where the Green Team has put,
Has to do with whether or not it's a policy of the borough, because the Green Team doesn't set policy. One of the things that occurred to me, I'll add, if I may,
sure.
is that I would absolutely put a sign up in my yard, we are pesticide
Thank
free,
you.
fertilizer free. But I naturally thought of the Green Team as well. They don't set policy, but they raise awareness and run educational programs that, reinforce this sort of a set of policies that are set by this body that have to do with sustainability. However, there are many members of the Green Team and they all live here and they have yards. So I wanted to suggest that as an option as well.
Right, but sorry, I just want to go for a little further into this. I mean, this is a project for people to, join in if they wish to abide by this and so on. But how is it different from what the Green Team did this weekend with the presentations towards, sustainable
I was
living?
actually there at that.
How is that
event, at
different?
table.
From what was presented?
Well, it's a one-day event.
One day event.
Right. I just think we should think about a little bit more, because I honestly, I can see some difference, but not so much difference with something like Dormer Dreams, and I think maybe the council should look to clarify.
Can I give
Otherwise,
you
it becomes a
a
matter of opinion.
can I give you a devil's advocate?
Mhm.
Okay, someone walks in here next week and they want to put signs up on public land that we should ban natural gas stoves.
Mhm.
And now we're in what's obviously a political discussion. And I don't want to go to that political discussion in our public lands where people are going to the park and they just want to play baseball. So again, you know, whether or not people agree with being pesticide free or not, if it's on their own private property, I don't see any problem whatsoever. Once we start putting messages like this on public property, it's allowing all these other things to creep into what we're doing here, and I just don't think it's appropriate for our public land.
We are not as a government or community, a pesticide-free community. No, it hasn't been set forth as a policy. Not that it wouldn't be a bad one, you know, a good one, but the other thought I had was the Environmental Commission will be receiving a debrief at a point in time, which is uncertain right now, after the hydro raking at McCarter Pond is complete. And part of the debrief is to explore maintenance and management strategies that help preserve the investment that we're making there. And of course, one of the obvious considerations is pesticide and fertilizer. Those properties are all within that area that would feed, their stormwater would feed McCarter Pond. It'd be great to have you there for that meeting.
Previously, I've gone to every environmental commission, but you know,
Good for
school
you.
stuff, it's difficult.
Yeah.
If I may add a comment regarding your causes, we are actually a nonprofit. We have an LLC, so we're not just a cause, we're actually a business as well, if that means anything.
I guess we need to tighten our ordinance on signs. Is that?
I would like a clarification.
Clarify.
I definitely would like a clarification, but I would suggest in the meantime, and that you go to the green team and have them hopefully join with you, support you, and get the word out. That would be my suggestion.
We have plenty of people that were
But
signed up.
yeah, but in the meantime, I just back to, you know, and I'm fully supportive of Denver Dreamers as well, but I would put that in a similar category. I think you're saying this is political. Denver Dreamers is not. I would like greater clarification on.
I don't want you to-
This is a little bit, to me,
I'm gonna let you finish.
judgmental on our part on whether or not this is.
I don't want you to put words in my mouth. In fact, I specifically said, I'm not specifically talking about this one instance. I'm saying that if we allow something like this, then it can go further down the lane into worse situations where things could be more political. I didn't say that this was political. I said that we're opening the door to other things to come in that could be political. And that's setting bad precedent. And my job as mayor, it truthfully is to see the whole all-encompassing landscape and what the action could be and what the reaction could be. And in this situation, I'm not specifically even looking at Emma's one request here. I'm looking further down the road to see what else could be coming.
Yeah, so I would just, back
It's
to
not
my
the first time
suggestion
that's
that you
happened.
work through the layers of the environmental commission and the green team. Because it would be great if we as a, you know, a community embrace something like this, but you might, it sounds like maybe you need to work through the more formalized bodies, and committees, so that maybe the voice comes from them.
The green team is aware of this, and we have worked together in previous instances, even when I was free other programs. Other
We know each other from there.
Councilman Rodriguez?
So, thanks for bringing this forward. Commend you for the effort. Regardless of my opinion on supporting it or not, my view on signs on private property, if they're within 2 feet of the home, I don't think there's any time frame. We can't say you can't have them on. So RFH senior, you know, whatever, those things are on lawns for a year. So I don't think we can put a time frame on what people put on their private property for as long as you want them there as a homeowner. So I was trying to find it in the code. I think that's your best route if you're trying to be efficient and you're trying to get the word out. I think that going through the green team and environmental committees and commissions is an important step. But I think you should augment that along with just approaching private people, doing a campaign, whether it's door knocking or mailings or whatever, and then just use the laws that are, or the ordinances that are at your disposal right now. That's my suggestion for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate it.
Reach out to me because we have a no-knock ordinance and there's some people who are registered, so I don't want you to get yelled at for that.
And drop off a sign if you want at my house.
Oh, of course.
I'd be proud to display it. I don't know if there's one.
No, this is one of them. We had more, but through the whole, when the things got removed, one of them,
Sure.
we lost one, but.
I think they're, Allison, weren't they on the back?
Yeah, I picked up one, but one of them has gone AWOL.
Scroll back.
I'm like, who would have taken us? Maybe they'll put it up somewhere. I don't know.
You never know.
Did you design them yourself?
I did all the design.
They're phenomenal.
Thank you.
Really nice work.
Does someone want to make a motion to approve it? Do you want to withdraw your request? Do you want to?
It's more just.
Well, it's a motion to approve or deny.
Right.
A request that was made,
request, allow.
or she can withdraw her request. Either way. It's up to you guys.
Mayor's got. I think it's easier to withdraw your request.
Well, she would have to do that. Sure you can.
Just, I don't see her face.
Smart, that's smart. That's smart. Does anyone
I'll
want to
make a motion to support the lawn signs for a period of 3 weeks on public property.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Cole,
No.
Howie,
No.
Hodge,
No.
La Barbera,
No.
Rodriguez.
He made the motion. Is he still voting?
He's
still there.
Oh,
Beth is alphabetically ahead of me.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes. It failed.
Thank you.
Emma, thank you.
Good for you.
Thank
Next up, we have a tree removal appeal from Cambridge Custom Homes, 78 Parker Avenue. How are you? Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay,
I think we were waiting on a recommendation from the tree, your tree expert.
we did. We did, so to members of the governing body, we did receive another email from Sherry Sparrow. Did everyone see that email?
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions? No.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is this a decision? Is there anything sequential about how to do any request? Do we take these matters sequentially and wait to find out what happens at municipal court, or at least two separate things? Separate. Okay.
Any other questions? Does anyone have a motion? Is there anything you want to say?
No, I think I said it last time.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve or deny the tree removal?
Motion to
appeal?
approve.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call? Oh, wait, I can say all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right,
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Send
Okay.
a letter. Just
Thank you, thank you.
Tim, please, in the future, because it sounds like you're gonna be building more homes, don't knock any trees down until.
You know what, it was a excavator that, I have a letter and I guess I'll take it up to, okay. But as you know, it wasn't, they didn't get my approval. I was in front of you guys and the tree did fail, basically, so it wasn't, believe me, I'm not gonna take one tree out of 12 there. But I will be extra careful.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, moving along, we have a tree removal appeal from Clark Toner of 121 Kemp Avenue. Is Mr. Toner present or on Zoom? Did everyone get an opportunity to see Sherry's email on this tree? Does anyone have any questions?
Not a question there. No.
Okay, does anyone have a motion to approve or deny?
One quick question. Do they have to be here in person?
No.
It's not a requirement? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Whoa. Okay, next up, we have the 2022 Annual Parks and Recreation Report. And I believe we have the DJ Breckenridge here.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the support of mayor, council, Lisa Casper, our administrator, for everything that we do, all the different programs. I'll quickly run through some of what we have going on right now, some stuff we have going on in the summer. Quick recap of 2022, and if there's any questions on anything, I'm happy to answer them. And we'll start with some upcoming events. So we do have, I know you talked about the fishing derby, so I think we're good to go with that, with everything that's going on in Carter Pond. So if there's anything that we need to delay on that, just let me know, we can always make some edits to that. We have the Memorial Day Parade coming up. Mayor Halpern is gonna be the MC there, we're always excited for, and it's always a really special day. So appreciate anyone who wants to come out for that.
Can I just mention too, if you come, that's at 9:30, but the parade is at 9.
Ceremony's 9, or I'm sorry, the parade is 9, ceremony's 9:30.
So the governing body understands if you show up at 9 a.m. at the parking lot across from Knollwood,
Right.
then we walk as a council to the ceremony, if you can make it. We have a nice sign.
Yeah, and we'll be bringing back summer concerts, the Wednesdays on the water. So feel free to stop anytime you can. We're gonna be releasing that schedule this week or next week. We're working on some of the graphics. Most of the details are worked out at this point. We have a lot of great bands. Shout out to Mayor Halpern for, there was someone who actually during COVID, when we were doing all the at-home challenges, there was someone who at the time, Johnny Kazan, who was in high school, and he submitted a bunch of music thing, playing guitar, singing, all that stuff. And now he's graduated college, he's back in the area and he's a performer and he's doing a couple shows for us. So thanks for looking that up. He's gonna be special. So we're gonna have it for 2 nights.
That was the kid from Cooley Terrace?
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
yeah, Johnny,
I
yeah.
remember,
Yeah,
I
he's
just
really
met
cool.
his dad. It was his dad that I spoke to.
Okay, yeah,
He
you
told me
connected
about
that.
the kid.
Yeah, and we emailed together
Yeah,
and we got it
great.
for 2 nights. So we're super excited for that. And then the next page is miscellaneous rec and park related items. Obviously for a small town, we do have a lot of parks. We work together with Rich, DPW on making sure that we're upkeeping everything to the best of our ability. Anytime that you see something, I know we're big with the rec committee on making sure if we see something that needs some work, or we're not sure if that's something that we can work on, just letting us know and we can do get on it as quickly as we can. Good example of that was at the last meeting, we talked about the bird sanctuaries and things in there that need a little bit of work. So those meetings are always a good time to address those, the first Tuesday of every month. And I have outlined here on that packet just a list of the miscellaneous park features that we have, and all this need to be upgraded or maintained, eventually upgraded. So just things we're always keeping an eye on as we go. And
TJ, on that upgrade versus maintain, would love to talk about that. We've been Rich and a couple other people. Maintenance prior to needing to do an upgrade, I think is the preference, but also stuff comes end of life. So we can circle up off online on that.
yeah, I think that'd be great, especially from the recreation committee perspective. I know they put together some ideas of some different playground items and things like that, that might be something to look forward to as those things start to age out.
Thank you.
So, looking forward to that discussion. We work with a lot of groups, whether they're local groups like the seniors, garden club, sports groups, softball, lacrosse, all the Knollwood teams, all the RFH teams. It's seasonal, but right now I've highlighted there, the groups in red are the group that we're currently working with here in the spring season. And although it's the spring, we've got all the summer stuff booked up, we're starting to plan fall stuff already. So we have to think a couple seasons ahead as in terms of that stuff goes. Our biggest thing right now is with the rec and crew camp, which is the biggest camp that we run. We've got over 200 kids that we had last year. We set a record for our attendance and different things like that. Toughest part right now is hiring staff. And what we mean by that is we have 2 head counselors, one at each campsite, one at the community center campsite, which is grades 4 through 8. That one, we're looking for a head counselor. It's typically a teacher, ideally from Fairhaven or from RFH, but we'll go to surrounding towns if we need to. And we found that having a teacher there sets a really solid base there. As far as the 2 things that we focus on are fun and safety, and having a teacher there really helps with that. So we are soliciting for that. If anyone knows anyone who might be interested, have them shoot me an email. You'll see on the May 22nd agenda, we'll be sending over the list of names for approval for the rec and crew camp as far as counselors go. And we try to wait as long as we can to appoint those people, just because we want to make sure that it's distributed evenly between the two campsites. And if we have a super high number of campers, we'll try to hire a little bit more aggressively, versus if our numbers aren't as high, maybe we don't need as many counselors. So we try to marry that up the best we can.
Do you mean a teacher from Fairhaven or just any?
That's ideal, just because
Right,
they will have some
they
familiarity
know,
with the students
okay.
and things like that. And it just helps to build that community, which we talk about. But if it's someone from, we had a conversation with someone from Rumson last week, I'm not sure if that's gonna work out. So right now, we're more in the mindset of we'll take anyone that's a teacher that has a good familiarity with the community, so.
Did you touch base with Neil and the principals and Millwood?
Yeah, we had them send something out. We have Millwood, Sickles, and RFH send something out to their staffs. No nibbles yet, but maybe people want in some mood. So,
Not a college student, like it has to be minimum.
for that position, unless they had some type of, student teaching experience, we
Sure.
prefer to go with someone with some experience in that realm. And we've got a couple of counselors back that, which I think is really cool about this camp, is they'll start camp going to first grade, second, third, it's open all the way until eighth graders. And sometimes they'll come back as counselors in training, which is great. When they're under 16, they get volunteer hours for college or whatever they need hours for. And then they can apply later on, once they're 16, to be paid counselors. And we have some that have been here since, I just talked to someone that finished his sophomore year of college today, and he's been with us for like 6-7 years. And he was at the camp before, so when we talk about this small knit community and things like that, that's just really a microcosm that shows that. So it's a pretty cool camp experience. So we've got that going on. Got a ton of other camps, you'll see on the next page. These are typically run around this amount of camps for the summertime over the 8-10 week window there. And I think folks really like having that diverse option for either a soccer camp, or they can have an engineering camp. We're really excited to roll out the marine science camp down at the Normandy this year, which we talked to the chief about in terms of making sure that was a safe option since it's newer in that community. We talked to the mayor about that as we rolled it out, as long as the council liaisons and borough administrator. So we're really excited about that 5-week camp. And maybe we can build on that in the future if all goes well. That can sold out pretty quick, as I know that Councilman Rivera knows.
DJ, the majority of these camps, do you find that it's them coming to you, like, oh, can we do something? Or is it more you're going to different places trying to get these organizations to come give them?
I'd say it's a mix. I'd say we've got like our steadies that we know they do a great job. The parents love them. We get great reviews for them. Those ones we try to get back every single year. There's always some new ones that, they try to come, and we'll look at it on a case by case basis. We can't have 100 camps out there.
Sure.
And, as we've had conversations with borough engineer and Teresa about overusing the fields, we don't want to overuse them. They do need rest, and that comes down to the maintenance and different things like that. So to answer your question, it's a mix. When we get different groups that might reach out to us, we try to see if there's a need for it, and if there's a fit in the community for it. So we can review those case by case.
Do we have something on the borough website that says, want to run a camp or want to run an activity in Fairhaven, contact here, and it goes to you?
Not specifically. So we have the facility request form, which is essentially that, where it says if you'd like to try, reserve space for X, event or program, you would fill out that form. But maybe we
But
would
not for like a camp. Do you think that would be beneficial? Teresa?
I don't want to cast too wide a net, you know what I mean, to our point.
Maybe get too many
We're trying to make a
inquiries?
nice balance here, and, it does, we have a limited DPW staff and, maintain the fields and, with campers there. We have to allow times for them to work, so I think we've got a pretty good balance now, and our parents are happy, so I'm not so sure we have to aggressively market it.
I have one question about the marine science camp. Is the American Mineral Society putting that, who's doing it for us?
So there's an organization who runs those camps, and they did Rumson, I think they've done 10 or so camps the last couple of years. So it's really popular over there. It's Marine Science Camp. They're actually all over New Jersey, all up and down the East Coast. Marine Science Camp is the name of the company. That's who is our third-party vendor for that. So for a camp like that, we advertise, they take care of registration, things like that. We take in a 10% rebate. So it's a nice little moneymaker for the town in that way. And you'll see on the last page that, we have been increasing, the profit for the department over the last few years. And if the way that works is we used to get $10 per camp. A couple years ago, we made the recommendation to change that to 10%. And that's helped boost some of the revenue that goes back into the town for things like that.
I'm very intrigued by the last PowerPoint slide. I think it's pretty fantastic. I would love to have a conversation how we can continue to increase that and
Especially with the-
aspire to budget neutrality. I don't think we'll ever get there for certain things, but the fact that it's profitable, I'm really curious over what the percentage increase is year over year
Is this a gross number
has to be.
or a net?
So on that last page, that's rec department and program profit by year. So for each program that we run, some are money makers and some aren't. We make a little bit on the dances, but the camps is where we'll be able to make a little bit more money, depending on how things go. Like rec and crew was a really good year last year. We spiked up in our registrants. So that was a nice way for us to
Is
boost a
this a
little bit.
net number?
Yeah, it's
The
true profit, like money
Yeah.
in your pocket.
Yeah,
Net of expenses,
Net?
net of paying people.
yep, yeah, it's at the end of the day. Yeah, and I broke it down a little bit. I met with Councilwoman Kristen Hogan and Elizabeth Koch a few months ago. We kind of broke down these numbers where it was camps versus programs and kind of where that's gone. So,
Huh, pretty good.
yeah. So and this money will go generally back into the current fund for the most part. It would go under, it files under field use. That goes back into the current fund, which then spend however.
It's actually a revenue that comes
We should
in,
look at that.
that the CFO will run off against next year's budget.
That's nice regular revenue. It's awesome. 50 grand's not nothing small.
So again, and anytime that we can improve a program or there's a strategic way to, get more folks in the door, again, with making sure that we're not overrunning the fields or the facilities, that's always the balance that we're trying to strike. We're open and all ears for that. So appreciate the support as always. I know it takes a lot of people to pull off these different programs that we run, and having, the supportive people in this room is important. So.
And the other thing too, right, we're working with DJ on the community center program, right? Given that the new community center is gonna come online, what's the procedures, what's the policies, what does it look like? All that draft information will come back to here for us to look at. Maybe in, I don't know, 6 weeks, be ready for you guys to look. Nice work.
I think it's fair to say for the historic mayor and council, and the current mayor and council, a town the size of Fairhaven having a full-time recreation director is a big commitment, and not a lot of towns this size have that. And DJ's been an excellent, hire for the borough of Fairhaven, does an outstanding job. It's been my pleasure to watch him grow through years in that position and bring more and more to the table. And I think our residents are generally very happy with recreation in Fairhaven.
Thank you for everything you do. And I hear if your kid needs to hit a baseball, you're a good person to ask as well.
Yeah, my college coach wouldn't say the same thing. I rode the bench for a bit, but every once in a while I ran into one.
Thank you, DJ.
Thanks, DJ.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving along, River Road street light upgrades. Teresa?
Yes, Mayor. The Borough of Fairhaven, as you know, has any number of streetlights in our downtown, majority of which belong to the borough, some small amount belong to JCP&L. And through the years, we of course lose some on an ongoing basis to traffic accidents, from which we do collect funds from the insurance company of the person who has the accident. And then we certainly have, through the years, brought in different lights, and they were not all the same color, they're not all LED. So with the direction of the governing body, we were looking to come up with a scope of work for upgrading all the lights on River Road. And the cost is certainly going to exceed the bid threshold. And that, even with the fact that we have offsetting monies coming in from insurance, doesn't change the fact that we still have to put the project out to bid. As we've talked about before, Rich has a lot of design and contracting work in front of him, and putting out these bid specs would have to wait a significant amount of time behind other projects. So I was asked to get a quote from our consulting engineer here at Rockin's office. And what you have before you tonight is a quote to go ahead and he describes the work involved. He's going to meet with borough officials to agree on the lighting details, material specs, prepare the plans, the technical specs for bidding, advertise, make a recommendation, go through the bid process, see the pre-construction meeting, review the shop drawings, and eventually they'll do some on-site representation during construction, process payment, and final, and close up the project. It's by hour, but based on their contractual fee, not to exceed 17.9. I don't know if you want Rich to expand on the scope of work that they put together, he'll be happy to do so. And then we can answer any questions, but the real question is whether or not we want to go ahead and award this scope of work to Bachman's office.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, it also came down to how much bandwidth, right? There's only so much time of the day, given all the different projects going on, and given the prioritization of this in the last governing body meetings. The one thing I do want to hit one more time, and forgive me, Therese, the bid threshold, I think is like 47.6.
Yeah.
Right, so, and then what's the total insurance money that we collected?
It's right now, it's always a moving target depending on the most recent accident, but we have, 30,814.50 in reimbursements for poles that were taken out for insurance.
Just want to call that out.
So, I'm interested in understanding, if we did this in pieces, could we stay under the bid threshold? Because the 17.9 gets us the outside engineer to prepare documents just so we can go out to bid. The cost of the job, I think, is estimated around 75,000. Is that about right, Rich?
It's contrary to public contract law to do a job in sections to avoid going out to bid.
Well, it seems to me we have some authority to look at piecemealing the work so that we don't have, that's a big number, 17.9. So I'd like to understand what pieces we could do. The lamp posts themselves, which need to be replaced. It sounds like it's lamp posts, bulbs, some wiring. What else? The numbers on the poles.
Rich, why don't you just real quick, because at the engineering meeting I did, because I still can't wrap my head around this one, but it made me feel a little better when you described the components of the job. So why don't you just?
Yes, so a number of months ago, I put together kind of a scope of work outline for the River Road streetlights. There were 8 parameters: non-LED, repairs needed, the ones that are knocked down, the banners, because we had the 4 new banners coming online to get those put up, the globe style, which was a discussion. We've got a mix of JCP&L light fixtures in our downtown, which is basically from Borough Hall to Oak. The tree pruning that was necessary. And then at the time, we were just wrapping up the streetscape project on the western end. And that was going to be bringing on the 24 new light poles. So since then, we worked with the county through a shared service at no cost to the borough. We had the tree pruning done. Monmouth County Shade Tree came in and worked with our tree expert and my office, and we went down River Road and elevated some of the trees and pruned some of the branches that were not only a hazard for vehicles and trucks, but also some of the street lights were covered up. Some of the intersections had some sight distance issues. So that work was completed. Since then, the new light poles have come on. Obviously, one was hit a couple months ago, so we had a report on that. The banners, we had the new banners come online. There were the 4 styles. We contracted those out, had them installed, kind of to get them up for now. There was $15 a unit to have them installed. It made sense at the time. Ultimately, we want to look at coming up with a plan to have the banners spread out appropriately throughout the district. That's a discussion we can have offline or through a subcommittee or however that process may take place. So that was kind of on this outline. Obviously, the poles that are knocked down. Since I put this together, we've had 1 or 2 that have come down since. I've also met with the developer, obviously, that's going to be doing the Sunoco site, and they've agreed to take care of the ones that were the issues at the corner of Cedar as part of their project. So we were able to pull 1 or 2 off that list. The JCP&L lights, as you know, We don't own them. We pay a fee for usage and maintenance. Those are amber in color. They don't match pretty much anything. They were put in back in 06, 07. So roughly 15 years ago. So as part of this project, we were in coordination with JCP&L to try to get those retrofitted to LED.
Which would be on JCP&L's head, like they would replace them at their cost.
It would be a request of the borough, and then we would have to coordinate that to see
Okay.
how that would. That coordination hasn't taken place yet because there's a bit of effort to do that.
Okay.
Obviously, the non-LED, as a light pole goes out, we have been bringing in the electrician. Typically, it's a ballast or a bulb. If they're gonna go up there, we say swap it out to LED, do the LED, what they call as a retrofit. It's about a $300 charge with the bulb and labor, maybe $350. We have about 30 of those poles that need to be converted. So when the project was built throughout the years, we were using what they call high pressure sodium. That's why it gives you that more amber. That was a softer light compared to the metal halide, which was the other technology out there. And at the time, we had started with the high pressure sodium, which was all before my time and most of your time, and we continued through with that style. The other thing, repairs are needed. There's some broken wiring. There's receptacles that don't work. So during the holiday season, we hang up the wreaths. We've got issues with some of that. Across the street, adjacent to the park, there's 3 or 4 lights. We know there's an issue with the wiring underground. So we've got a plan to fix that. The other thing we did a full inventory of all the light poles. I sent out a couple of our guys in DPW. We have a spreadsheet of every light pole, the address. One thing is they're not numbered. There's no identification. I know one of you brought that up tonight. As part of this project is mark the poles just like the utility companies do. So if we get a phone call, whether it's from PD or a resident or whoever, we have an identifier to say, okay, S12, needs some work. What else is on here? The globe style. Through the years, you've got about 3 to 4 different globe styles. You obviously have JCP&L, you've got the latest ones we put in, you have other ones that have been put in through, depending on manufacturer. At the time, during these projects, a lot of it had to do with supply issues or manufacturing issues. Some of them were discontinued. Some of them we had to go with a smaller pole base because of limitations in sidewalk area, so that changed possibly the type. There was a lot of factors with all that. At this time, I personally, or as part of our subcommittee, I had made a recommendation not to go and start changing out the globe styles. I don't think you can do that because you've got varying manufacturers. I think the color is really the concern, to try to have some consistency with the color, so the LED retrofit. So as I said, there's 8 things. The non-LED, the repairs needed, the poles that are knocked down, the banners, the globe style, JCP&L lights, the tree pruning, and the new light poles.
Rich, I'm getting confused. So globe style is not part of what would be remedied in this piece of work.
We identified it as a factor on the outline,
But it's not.
but
some-
it was not going to be part of this.
Okay, so
And,
it's not
and tree
part of-
pruning will not even. Is
Tree pruning is
right?
completed.
It's done.
Is there anything else besides those 2 that's not going to be part of it?
Well, I think I interrupted it. I'm sorry. Because you were.
No, that covers everything.
So there's 6 things that are going to be affected. My question is like,
LED, the LED bulbs, sorry, Mayor.
no, go ahead. sure.
Okay, the repairs, that refers to some of the wiring, the lamp posts that were knocked down that we need to replace.
The coordination with JCP&L. And then
Okay, we're gonna
and then
outsource
finalize-
that. That's what's.
that would be part of this project.
Um,
The goal is to get everything done on River Road, street light related, whether it's a banner, whether it's a light pole not working, whether it's the color, of the LED bulb or non-LED bulb. Let's just get it done. Everything we anticipate, even the light poles alone, there's $6,000-7,000 a piece installed.
The
If we have
insurance will
8 of them,
reimburse us for that.
But
cost.
that puts us over, that alone puts us over the bid threshold. So we have to put out a document to publicly bid the project. So that was the sense to go and get a proposal, since, you know, we've got the fair coming up, we've got, the holiday season will be here before we know it.
Do you think this work would be complete by the fair?
Depends on how fast we move with.
Yeah, let's see.
Well, government moves fast, so I'm not worried about that.
Lightning.
Two things I have on it. One is, you know a lot, I could tell the way you talk about this, you have a very detailed understanding of this entire project. My concern is we hire the consulting engineer to do it. Are they just gonna be asking you questions constantly and you're gonna spend 60% of the time helping them get to where they would get to anyway? Wasting the same time, and then we're just out $18,000. That's my one question. And the second one that I just want to make sure is on the record, so I know everything's recorded now, so future governing bodies, well after I'm here, can hear it as well. Is I think it's important that in the future we don't wait this long to do the project, so we don't get over the bid threshold, because the money stays the same, except for the fact now that we need someone to do this for $18,000, and we would have that savings. Ultimately, maybe we'll do it better because we're putting the whole project together and organizing it, but we wouldn't be at $18,000.
At the end of the day, we still have different votes. I agree with you completely. It's a matter of getting onto it sooner rather than waiting till the accumulation problem is so big, as you said.
If we, I guess the other side, what I was saying on that is if we would have done it sooner, I guess there's a chance that maybe now all the globes don't match, because you know, you do it over the course of 15, 20 years, and
True.
this 6 years, there's one manufacturer, and this 6 years, there's another manufacturer.
Yeah.
But
But also.
I still think it's good practice. You fix things as they break.
Correct, I agree with you completely, because also now we have an accumulation of repairs that it sounds like the minimum repairs to get the lamp posts back up is over the bid threshold. That's a shame.
And if they get hit again, we're like,
Well,
it'll be the same.
presumably you get hit one at a time, and one at a time we make the repairs, so that we don't end up, how many lamp posts do we have down right now?
8 or 9.
So the fact that we have 8 or 9 is why we have to pay an outside engineer to basically prepare bid specs, put it out, get quote, get job estimates from other contractors, and then award it to an outside group to take care of this, which has just become that much bigger.
I love the project. I mean, I think it's important, and I'll remind everyone, I said not a priority like facilities, but it was one of the priorities I thought was important, is to get that consistency in the downtown, as well as from a safety standpoint. There's some issues there as well. Those are my two concerns: the cost, obviously, to do this, and your time, Rich. You know, if we're going to hire someone and then they're going to take up all your time anyway,
Yeah.
then at that point, I'd rather you just do it yourself. But if you're confident that they're gonna, they're gonna allow you to do everything else, and they're not gonna bother you, and they're gonna be able to take this project on their own without having to call you every 4 seconds to ask you a question, that's a different conversation.
As part of the proposal process for the request, I sent them all the streetscape project design plans. I sent them all the cut sheets for the various light poles. They have all the information. Obviously, as any project, they'll have to coordinate that effort through my office and the administrator's office to, make some decisions and finalize things.
There's really 2 primary goals, right?
Yeah.
One, do the work in one fell swoop, make sure it's consistent, get it done, and get up to this state where we can fix something when it breaks. Second thing is also, given all the other projects going on, this is a priority, right? If we were not to do this and to ask you to do it, something would have to come off your plate though, because we can't just find the hours to do this, right? And the governing body now, I think for 2-3 meetings, has had the draft project prioritization, but the number of hours and all that is pretty straightforward. So that's the 2 things that we're balancing here. It's things that we're in the position that it's gotten to the scale that it is and requires this level of remediation. We need to make sure it doesn't happen again. But at the same token, it's also ensuring that the space exists in such a way that the other projects that are going on, 4 or 5 significant ones we're talking about tonight, continue on the pace that we're doing. So I just offer that as, I am in support of the proposal.
We also did hit supply chain issues, during COVID. It wasn't just a matter, we had an awful hard time securing, light posts for even, some of our streetscape projects during that period of time.
I had a quick question. It's sort of, it's related but tangential to this discussion. The Environmental Commission did a little field study on LED lights for the wattage. And I have it in front of me, and it took me a while to find it. I know Teresa and I received it. That's the only version I saw. Perhaps other people got it. I don't know.
Ralph sent it out, but it had to be, I'm gonna say, a year and a half or more ago. It was a while
It was a
ago
year.
when they did it.
October 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, what is the wattage? What is presumably we've begun to install the uniform LED bulb. Some that are out there are of the chosen wattage or lumens, whichever you prefer. Correct?
Sorry, I was skimming through this. The existing lights out there are 70 watts, the high pressure
Okay.
sodium.
But
So
we
there
want the
will be
LED.
it'll be equivalent LED wattage. The retrofit that's available, we had talked about this at our last engineering
We
meeting.
touched on it.
They, it's the 3000K.
So 3000K, which is probably, what is that? About like a 50 watt? And when you do the conversion, I'm trying to figure out a way to articulate for the public what it's gonna look like. It's only a cool white, I believe, is the only option, correct?
Yes.
There isn't a warm white available. It's only the
It might be
cool.
more of a soft white.
Says
It's
60
not-
watt is
it's-
the equivalent to
60?
3,000 Kelvin, if that's the rate.
And if I can offer, the Sherry is also a lighting expert and reviewed the PD and Community Center, and her recommendation for the residential lights that are going around PD was 3000K as well.
Mhm,
And she validated that in her assessment as well. I offer that as a data point.
that's helpful.
Yeah, but she
I
specifically.
also think the color is more important than the actual shape of the globe, because at night you're not going to see them.
We've done a number of them out there, so take a look and you'll see.
That's what I was
the
getting at.
ones-
There are some out there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Can you can't give us the number, but could you give us an idea of where we could see one just that's complete?
I would say we've probably done.
Are all the new
At
ones?
least a dozen.
Are all the new
All the
ones?
new ones.
Oh, so all the new ones
All
have the
new
correct
ones,
light.
and
Oh,
about at least a dozen existing. You'll see, like, when you're driving down River Road, anything that's not amber, those are the LED.
okay.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Anyone have any issues here with this?
Peter Avakian's office has already been appointed our consulting engineer, so I'm just gonna issue a PO. Give the governing body's direction.
I'm with you. I just,
River Road is important.
I know.
Councilman?
my only thing is, are we all in collective, I want to help with prioritization, right? Are we all in collective agreement, if possible, we want it done before the fair?
If possible.
If possible, if possible, asterisk,
That
yes.
would be.
That would be
most
ideal. So when we go back to Vakian's office, and I have a tremendous amount going on, but
Yes.
The main holdup would be the light poles.
Supply
would
chain.
be
we came across that with the
90
dock,
days out.
right? It took us 6 months for the Fairhaven dock light, right? Yep. So do we need,
A
are we good?
motion.
No,
Motion or?
No, just your directions. with that.
everyone's happy with that, right?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Next up, my favorite, non-domestic animal ordinance. Favorite.
No, I'm happy to kick it off.
Oh,
As everyone knows, we have a non-domestic animal ordinance in place. You'll see a copy of it in your agenda packet. We've also included a copy of the current permit in which residents need to obtain in order to have chickens or any non-domestic animals. We went ahead and put together a chart of all of the neighboring towns and whether or not they have a policy and what that policy looks like. And then Allison was kind enough to help me pull together just essentially a history line of all of the instances that we've had since the policy's been in effect. And so I think for most of us that have been involved in the past couple of months, there's been a couple incidences in town where neighboring properties have raised concern about chickens causing other types or drawing other types of rodents and insects into neighboring properties. So we thought it would be a good opportunity just to raise the agenda, raise the ordinance again, and think about whether or not we need to A, tighten the ordinance in terms of its language to be clearer, B, leave it as is and say we're fine with it, or C, possibly think about going in a direction where we start to phase out the ordinance. We currently only have 2 residents in town that have licenses. One is going to expire in June, the other one will expire in September.
How old do chickens live, you know?
I don't know.
I got Google.
Google it? I mean, this is my personal opinion. I haven't spoken about this with anyone, but Little Silver I see has chickens prohibited for lots smaller than 1.5 acres. There's no farmland in Fairhaven. I don't think it's appropriate to have these animals. However, I realize that we permitted certain residents to have them. So I don't know if it's even possible to grandfather those 2 locations, for the life of those chickens.
Most hens generally live between 3 and 7 years.
7 years. What's that? What did you say, Alice?
5 years.
Well, if they have babies, they'd be exceeding their permit for 5 chickens, so they have to get rid of them anyway.
Right.
What'd you say?
5, I remember.
Yeah,
Saying it's about 5 years.
So how many years have each of them had the permit for us already?
Mr. Deep Black on River Road was during COVID, and the kids were home from school. And Ms. Scott was shortly after.
I personally, that's my opinion, is I would, if it's a 7-year lifespan, they've had a permit for 3 years, you grandfather them for an additional 4 years. After 4 years, they have to give up their chickens, but that's just my opinion. I would like to hear from all of you and see what you guys think.
There are the chickens out there that are not licensed.
I'm gonna guess there are, but I don't know there are.
Or you'll be surprised at how many reports. That's how we.
That's how you find out. Have you gotten reports of other chickens?
Not recently.
Not recently. Okay.
I mean, Kristen, if
Are
you.
you raising goats down there in the backyard? Because I see here there's someone had 4 goats on their property in 2010.
That's right, I was the Markers.
Oh, you knew.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
If you,
They live on, lived on Buena Vista.
Sorry.
if you summed up the differences with the other towns, what does it boil down to? Do most towns in North don't have it? Do they ban it?
Rumson doesn't have it, but they have a lot more property than Rumson.
Can
I
I
mean,
can I answer just so that
Sure,
I've done
yes.
my research on this and very familiar. Most of them are tighter language in this, as to Mayor's point about the, their yardage. Whether or not the yard can fit a chicken coop. And then there's also tighter language around the distance between that coop and the neighbor's property.
And based on your research, would you recommend we tighten the ordinance or go ban completely?
I mean, that's the question, right? I think if we keep it as Josh suggests, I think it might be difficult to police only because people can easily bring in new chickens as others pass away. I think it's hard. It's true. I just don't think, personally, I don't think it's right for a town like Fairhaven where we have very small lots. There have been more complaints than there have been, I guess.
The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Right.
It's not. That's
Is
kind of where
this,
my
so I'm
opinion is.
sorry to ask, but is it just chickens? Is that the only issue?
I think we're talking about all
I think we're talking
non-domestic
about all-
animals.
And the people that have bunnies, outside bunnies and other things.
There's outside bunnies?
I don't think bunnies are part of this.
I just want to know. I
Bunnies
just
are
wanna know what's
no,
included.
non-
Let's see, hold on.
The non-domestic would be.
Okay,
Yeah.
it says,
Yeah.
Bunnies can be domesticated.
it says cattle, goats, chickens, bees,
Okay.
bees,
Bees.
hens, hogs, horses, ocelots? Is that how you pronounce
Nice
it?
and pronounced there,
Okay,
Mayor.
pigs, including potbelly pigs, pigeons, sheep, swine, or any other animal is deemed to be dangerous to humans.
Okay, so it's really the chickens that we're talking about for.
Well, the
purposes of
ordinance
our-
includes all of them.
Includes all, of them, yes, the complaints that we've had.
Recently, the complaints we've had is chickens.
What about just increasing the lot size? Like if you look at Little Silver, their chickens are prohibited on lots smaller than 1.5 acres. And in Red Bank, they're not permitted on less than 1/2 acre.
Right.
But they must maintain 25 feet
Right.
from neighboring properties.
Right.
And 40 feet from the main dwelling.
How do you handle the current two situations?
I
I know one of them is not
I
1.5
think we should
acres.
grandfather them in. I think. if it's-
Forever or 4 years?
4 years. Give them one more renewal period.
Can we
But
do
they
that
have to
legally?
renew, hold on, they have to renew every year.
So give them one more renewal period.
For 1 year.
4 years?
For 4 years?
No.
For 1 year.
For
No,
one.
it's
For
1 year.
sorry.
So just give them one more year?
Yeah.
The other thing is, depends on the property, right? Most properties are houses and houses and houses and houses, but what if you are at the end of a cul-de-sac in an area that there's no homes on most of your sides?
And so this, I think the what ifs is gonna be the challenging part, right? And I think we have to be thinking about what's right for Fairhaven and whether or not our town has the infrastructure for non-domestic animals. That's really, I think, what we should be looking
We
at.
also want to think about the practicality of enforcement, right?
Right.
We can say we have a rule and all this, but if it's
Right.
not enforced, it means nothing.
It means nothing, and we've had that, right? We've had the health code official who was lovely go to a recent property, he found those signs of rodents, there were rodents in every single home surrounding that property. That's a fact.
We have 6,000 enforcement officials on this chicken stuff now. It feels like everyone is ratting everybody out.
We're talking 6,000,
I mean-
6,200 residents, and we have 2 residents that currently have chickens, right?
Right.
So I think we
Yeah.
have to maintain a pragmatic approach here. I love how Kristen approached it. What do we want? What's best for Fairhaven, right? Are people moving to Fairhaven because they're able to hatch their own eggs and have chickens in the back? I did not hear that. Maybe it is possible, but
And we can laugh about it now, honestly, but in the fall, when it gets cold
I
and
think
the
it's
rats
time.
permeate homes, it's not so
I
fun.
think it's time to move on from non-domestic animals.
So
There's a reason they're called non-domestic animals.
I would just say that I would support restricting non-domestic animals, or like bees are different. You know, we just look at this separately, but I understand that things are coming up. That's why we're discussing this, right? So it seems to me having enough space to accommodate chickens such that it doesn't impact your neighbors is the main thing. I don't think we're gonna get a flood of permit requests, but I would be in favor of limiting it to lots of a certain size that can functionally support chickens without it affecting the neighbors,
Yeah, I mean,
rather than banning.
I
it
would support
altogether.
that, a certain size lot, which probably most homes do not have.
Right.
But if it's large enough, I think it's okay. But also the notion that if there are no neighbors on a couple of your corners, so no one's gonna see anything, maybe that's not such a concern either. So I think it kind of also depends how far away the neighbor is, or even if there is a neighbor. So it comes down to a few lots, but I wouldn't ban it altogether.
My only problem with, I understand why you say it, my only problem with that is we continue to become the chicken court then. Where people are coming in and we're sitting here discussing chickens. I think, the kangaroo court needs to end when it comes to chickens. I think and bees are included. I know why you say it, but they are included here as a non-domestic animal. And I see how important bees are, obviously with the pollination situation going on everywhere now.
There are people who are raising bees. I think there's one person in Fairhaven raising bees.
Yeah.
It's not a
I-
problem.
That I would be fairly concerned about.
But
Because
you have
that
a
makes-
child next door to a house with bees that's allergic to bees.
Yeah, I would be concerned.
Yeah,
about
so
that.
I think we're at the point now of,
That's more,
I think it's
I
more
think-
concerning
I
than.
think Councilman LaBarbera said it perfectly. We got 7,000 residents, we got 2 houses with chickens. This is a good time now when we don't have 30 houses with chickens. We have 2 to set the standard, set the market, we move on from it. I don't think we're gonna get much pushback. We can grandfather in those 2 locations. They invested in their coops, they invested in their chickens, they did it the right way, for the most part through permits. And we allow those chickens to ride off into the sunset before the permanent ban.
How about the bee hotel over at the garden?
The Bee Hotel.
That's on.
There's an
Oh,
Eagle
our property.
project over
I
by
know.
the community gardens and Fairhaven Fields. That is on
Where
public
is that
land.
again?
It's right next to
over
the
by that
community gardens.
Is that for hunting purposes or
No, it's just. it's a
Pollination.
hotel.
pollinate the garden?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we have trails there. I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, it's already there.
It's been there
There's
for
no
3 or 4
problems with
years.
it. It was a legal
I'm not
stuff.
afraid of trails there.
I think it's
It
okay.
was an Eagle Scout project,
Yeah.
a bee hotel.
Yeah,
There are bees that need
It's a-
someplace
it's
to
a-
lodge.
It's about 50 feet away from the.
maybe, what is a bee hotel versus hotel, whatever, versus raising bees and having actually, what does that mean?
It's not a hive. It's not. a
I
hive.
Right, that's what I'm asking. What does that
I
actually
don't know a
mean?
lot about it, but what I do think I understand about it is that every now and then a bee can lose, it get disconnected from its hive. And so the hotel helps to sort of bridge. Is that your
Is it
understanding of
active?
it?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
active?
it
I mean,
Like
I've
you see
never-
the bees going
I've never
around?
seen a bee go in
Excuse
or
me,
out of
it's
it.
Right, but we're not talking
Airbnb.
about.
Oh, my God.
Too much
Let's
fun.
see.
And we don't even get paid.
I don't know, so I'm
Okay,
just,
that's different than
I
having
think a little
beehives, right?
different.
Correct.
That's different, okay, so fine, so maybe that's not.
Think of it as a public
As
entity.
someone raising bees, that's
Correct.
different.
Yeah.
Maybe that's okay.
It's two different things. It's the bees.
I mean, you eliminate the bee hotel, the bees still flying around.
Right,
somewhere.
so bees-
That's the difference. They're not encouraging more bees. They're just giving them a place to stay.
Right.
Okay.
Just
I
like
have one
the
question.
coops are grandfathered in, you could grandfather that in and just say no more.
When you say no more, meaning that resident has a permit and they are not, they can renew it for a year and then no more chickens after that? So
Yeah.
they-
I would say, they have a year's notice.
A 1 year's notice.
Yeah.
Okay, so if your permit is expiring in June.
I would say when you give them a year from their next permit expiration. don't you think?
So
But they're all coming up this year. There's
Yeah.
one in June,
Yeah.
one in August.
Yeah, so you give them a year from June and a year from
Yes.
August.
They have them, they go to
You're-
farms.
You're just saying get your chickens out of Fairhaven?
A year from now.
Yeah. They get a year and a few months.
You'll need to rehome them.
They need to rehome them.
Is anyone?
So I have one question. So is the recommendation to get rid of, just eliminate all uses of
I think we
domestic?
need to vote on it, either eliminate it or we tighten the language, but the way it is right now, it's too big.
We should.
All non-domestic
Eliminate or
animals?
tighten?
What's
Okay.
that?
All not, all, the entire ordinance would get rid of?
I think so.
Or
No
tightening it
goats,
is what
no
you're saying.
chickens, no bees.
I think
Either
it's just
tighten
as
it
easy
or
to
we
say
get rid of
no
it.
No more. Well, you know what? Why create a class system where people with more property get chickens and others, people?
But I also, I'll also bring up this factor, right? If we do agree to tighten and allow non-domestics, what is the appropriate way to store them? What is conducive to the animal, right? It unravels. This ordinance was created, I don't know how many years ago, right? But when you look at, like, what size chicken coop should you have for the chickens? What's the ratio of coop size for the chicken as one of
Yeah,
40 different non-domestics?
there's a
So
live area.
Do we want to be in that business?
I'm saying I don't, right? But if we do, that is the commitment we have to make to understand each one of those non-domestic and what's conducive.
So wait
and
a
how
second,
those-
wait, this is stuff will come to me. I mean, we can separate the chicken from the rest.
I think so too. I think so too.
Well, my point is, yes, we could, but,
Right? I mean,
I don't think
I-
the juice is worth the squeeze.
the other ones, obviously, we don't want cattle in Fairhaven. This is easy, but the chickens, I have to say, I have a little bit of a heart for that. If it is a large property, I think I would be willing to allow for that. Because that's the way, I think it's completely different from the other on the list.
Again,
And
though,
bees is the same thing. I think bees are dangerous if you have a. I just think that that's just a bad.
right
view.
now, I'm gonna go back to what Councilman Lumber said. We have 7,000 residents, we have 2 permits. One of those permits I know is not on a big property. So I'm just saying, like, if you want to have chickens, maybe Fairhaven's not for you. And if that turns away one resident from coming to Fairhaven, I think that's an inherent risk we're gonna have to deal with. It kills a whole host of problems that we have here as a council in having to deal with situations where the neighbors are upset that
So
they're bringing vermin and, rats all through the neighborhood and causing havoc. I don't think it's worth again, the juice is not worth the squeeze on this, to continue to allow non-domestic animals in any form. I would get rid of the whole thing.
So is that what we vote on?
I would propose we modify the language to take it out. We have a bunny in our backyard, and it's in a coop.
He's not.
Bunny's not
But
included.
I think bees are okay, as long as, you're not gonna have a beehive on your property if you have a family member who's allergic.
No.
It's about the neighbors, it's the neighbors' property.
So they get a permit, maybe that would be part of their process, they'd have to.
How many bee permits do we have currently?
We've had a lot of inquiries, no permits.
0. I think we just,
Because we shot them down or because they never followed
never
through?
followed
Oh, they never followed through. Okay.
That I'm against completely. For safety
Let's
reasons.
just get rid of it all.
yep, I agree. Is this something that we need Greg to draw up an ordinance and then we come back and we vote
Strike
on
this
it?
ordinance, he'll draw it, we move it.
Wait, draw it or we're just?
But we
gonna-
have to give him.
But shouldn't,
Yes,
the ordinance
put a
still
line
needs to
in place.
read that you can't have non-domestic animals.
So here's the thing, it does read that. Our policy basically says it's the exception, not the rule.
Because you gotta strike that language out though.
I know, but they're being approved, right? So the way it's written, if you read it closely, it says that it's the exception, not the rule for you to get a permit, but we're giving them permits. Everyone's getting one, apply for one.
Oh, you mean, so we just stop giving permits?
We're just gonna tell Greg we're gonna negate the non-domestic.
Well,
animal
I'm
permit.
not,
I
opposed,
think
I'm opposed to banning,
But
I'm opposed to
the
banning.
the issue with that though then is if we want to codify it, if the governing body changes that, well, then maybe it should be the will of the governing body that's sitting on the dais. But I was gonna say, if you don't codify it, then next year, then someone can just give a permit if they want to give a permit.
Yeah, no,
We're
I'm
not
not in
achieving
favor, I'm
anything,
just
we're
saying.
not achieving anything then. And
Right.
we're also not causing the people that have them now to have to get rid of them.
Right. No, I agree, I'm just telling you the way it's written, so.
So I think there's a backstory that I don't know. Are the current chickens a problem for everyone around them?
They
In
have
both
been.
situations, they've been a problem.
And the problem is partially the rats you're talking about?
Oh, the rats.
On one, on the other one, it
Is
was,
attracting
They were
rats?
going on to
they were going on the neighbor's property.
Right, they have a shared.
The
driveway.
4 homes surrounding the property
Right.
had rat infestation in the drywall, in their concrete, in their kitchens, in their kitchen appliances,
Because the rats are eating the feed, is that what it is?
or the drop-ins, or the mess.
Or the what?
Bowel movements, I don't know, what do you call it? Feces. Feces.
Okay,
Waste products.
Waste product, thank you. Right, so, yeah, I agree, you can make a motion to.
Just gonna instruct Greg.
I don't want to make a motion. I think we're instructing Greg to draw up language, which would be introduced at a future meeting, which would then be voted on. We just got to get the language right and then see if we have 4 members of the governing body that approve.
Can I just say, if
And let's
that,
include everyone in that to try and get to where we need to be.
if that family whose permit is up in June, we should have something before
Well,
that
that's what I'm,
because
she's gonna be.
exactly. If it's a problem now, we don't have to wait to deal with it. If we have a known vermin problem, that's a public health concern that we can intervene immediately. We don't have to wait for a year to consider their permit.
And is that the rat one?
Yes. it
Well,
is.
the health officer did not, he,
You want to get rid of the chickens immediately.
The health code official did not find evidence that there were rats in the property. But every neighbor surrounding that property has rats in their home.
So they still need to deal with the rats. That's a public health issue.
But the root cause of the rats is the chickens.
If that's the root cause, although it doesn't sound like that was the conclusion, but we're all.
That wasn't the
you know,
smoking gun.
right, but there is some logic to that. But how is the feed store, I don't want to get into it, I think who knows?
But that's the,
All right, so I think we all agree, we're going to talk to
and we're
Greg
gonna,
about
and we're going to give people that are currently have chickens 1 renewal.
one additional renewal from where they are right now. My only question, everyone, is if,
I'm sorry, not if there's a rat issue,
Yeah.
infestation issue,
Yeah,
that's a no, immediately.
Well, when she applies, I can tell her she's gotta come before the government.
But why
If there's an
would we
issue, we need to
pressure health
address
inspector to come out
it.
with-
You did already,
I think
have all
that's
that,
fair.
Yeah.
all the
Is there-
emails, all the
is there any
documentation.
It's going to be hard to prove the health
He
issue.
didn't find any evidence of rat invitation,
Oh.
invitation on that property. He didn't find that the feed was
Just make it
being,
that,
you know,
renew the
the property
permit.
stored.
Before the-
he didn't see that that was.
Let's discuss that offline. I don't
Didn't mean
disagree.
it might
I think
not have
that's
been
a-
originally, but
that's a
at
good
the
point.
time he
Why
visited
are
the
we
property.
making that conclusion then?
I didn't make that.
Because the fact that all the homes around that property had rat infestation.
Maybe someone is keeping their bird food out.
It's possible.
I mean,
Let's move along.
okay.
Let's move along here let's prioritize by moving along to project prioritization.
Yes, we emailed this out. It was brought to our attention that there was a difference between what we want to call in our last attempt of project prioritization of the difference between a safety issue, which might be, rolling your ankle at the folk ramp versus a life safety issue, which might mean that we had, pieces of roof falling in on people's heads or something. So in order to take that into consideration, because it was ranked so highly in points, what we propose doing is separating that into critical life safety and just safety. And critical life safety would have 20 points, and just a safety issue, we're proposing 15. And this is, I'm even out the governing body members for your consideration and input, and if everyone's fine with it, we can move forward. We can certainly play with, maybe you could move safety down to 10 as opposed to 15, but we're just trying to get something so we can move forward with this concept of the prioritization matrix.
The two things, real quick, one thing that's really important to call out here, right, is everything has risks, everything, right? We have risks right now in this room. A risk becomes an issue, right? So we're specifically discerning life and safety issues, something that has already happened, right? So I just really want to call that out. And this has been the feedback to date, right? Because I think we're on our third governing body meeting on this, and nothing's been set, but we're trying to noodle through and fine tune this, get to I'm going to call it 75, 80% state where we're comfortable. Then we can take the projects that we have, put them on here, and then bring that to the governing body to see how the cookie crumbles, as my son said. So I just want to provide, there's a difference between a risk and an issue. We're not going to play games with it's a risk here. Everything's a risk, right? When is it a known issue? That's when it triggers on there.
I had a couple things. Let's see. As it relates to the master plan, there's the yes, no, points, no points part of this weighting category. And then there's the number of points. And I think most of my comments have to do with the number and the scale. So for example, when something is aligned with the master plan, it gets 5 points. And I would suggest to you that given that the master plan is like, that's a roadmap. This is what people said, it's combined with the technical support that we have from the professionals, and that document is really roadmap for the governing body. And I would say, one thing we could look at is maybe a yes, if it's aligned with the master plan, and it's a yes that 5 points, maybe it should be higher.
Yeah, bump it up. What do you want to bump it to?
I don't know.
If a life issue's 20, meaning
Right.
the black mole is a 20, alignment with the master plan, just make a recommendation. I think we can hash this out in 30 seconds.
But if you,
Done.
okay, but if you look at it, every project aligns with last plan, whether they made it 5 or 10 really makes no difference.
Well, it does make a difference, and these do, but there are things that are not on this chart. There are things that are
This is
not
just
on
the
the
engineering.
Yeah,
Correct.
most things that go through engineering really
Should be.
align
I
with
think-
the last semester.
I think a 10 for master plan, done. Everybody in agreement?
Oh, yes.
Cool.
And then when it says requirements, what do you mean by requirements? It's the item underneath it.
Yeah, what's the scope of work?
So you're talking about basic, you check the boxes that it's known.
Not check the box, but that the raw requirements are clearly defined and articulated. Because one thing that at least I've noticed with efforts handed off from governing body to governing body is that the requirements always haven't been clear. And so when the requirements aren't clear and you have scope creep, it can cause delays. So a project that's been fully baked, not a check the box exercise, but a project that's been fully baked and what the requirements are clearly understood, to me ranks higher than a project where they're not sure what they want to do.
Right.
And so what we
Okay.
want to try and avoid at all times is rework and redesign. So that was kind of the impetus of that column. Because there's plenty of projects right now where the scope is not clearly defined, at least for me.
Yeah.
Right?
And then how about in the last one? Can you just unpack that one a little bit? And then I'm almost done.
Just jog my memory, what's the last one?
Last one, current fund budget, where you talk, where it says, how many years until maintenance is required?
Yeah,
You know, like, I get it, there's a scale, 5, 10, 15. You rank higher if there's more maintenance? Or
no.
no, you rank higher if the maintenance is farther out. Is that what
Yeah,
you're trying
and
to
you're
say?
gonna grade me right now. You ready? Let's see how well I learned, right? So you have your capital.
Yeah.
And we make our capital investment, and eventually we'll have to convert into the current fund budget to maintain it, right?
Yeah.
So the police department, right? It has no maintenance cost. The new police department, excuse me, has no maintenance cost right now. Right now, it's gonna be all capital improvement, but at some point, there is gonna be maintenance. So what that column seeks to help provide insight for us is, hey, we got project X. I'm gonna feel that in my current fund budget, i.e. I have to maintain it next year, which is gonna impact my budget.
You're getting back to what Mary Helen was saying earlier about the lights.
Exactly.
It's just, again, each one of these one dimensionally is to serve a purpose and then help inform the whole. I think we have 12 different factors, right? So did I
Okay.
get my test right?
Last,
A good example would be Stone Dust Trails versus the tennis courts. Stone Dust Trails, we put in, they were a capital project. We had to move them to the current fund budget 3 to 5 years.
Mhm.
Tennis courts went in, they were a big capital project, but we'd have to move them to the current fund budget probably closer to 10. You know, they have a longer lifespan before we actually have to start fixing cracks or maintaining them.
Gotcha.
But, you know, the capital building piece is generally easy because you know where you're gonna charge, you know, if the capital fund's available, as long as the priority of the governing body, you approve it, we've got the money. But once that creeps into the current fund budget, that's where you see the current fund
Yeah.
budget start to go up.
Yeah.
It's a great
Okay.
question.
And then my last thing had to do with the last item in the top matrix, waterfront improvements. Normandy is separated as the living shoreline up in the top. And I just, if we zoom out for a second, we say we got 1.5 miles of waterfront along Madison with potentially 6, maybe +1 waterfront access points between Grange, Hants, Batten, the dock. 21 question mark Normandy, Shrewsbury Yacht Club. That's 1.5 miles of several waterfront locations. I suggested we think about them holistically. They're
Okay.
all different and they deserve a different response or maybe no response. I'm not the person to say that. I'll participate in the discussion. But I want to suggest that when we say waterfront, we put the Normandy down there too. Or we separate them all out. That
Oh, I
would
see
be
what you're
fine
saying.
with me as
Yeah,
well.
check. Understood. That's a fair point. Yeah.
Okay. That's
That's
the
great
extent
feedback.
of one last thing, Bicentennial Hall has an outdated maintenance and improvement document to guide the Historic Preservation Commission in sort of setting forth steps in care and keeping of Bicentennial Hall. It's out of date. Rich knows it well, I'm sure. But in the last go around to try to get services, the architect, and I forgot his name, the guy, Pavlik, no.
Cronin?
No. Anyway, it was offered that they could update that maintenance and management document for not a lot of money, $2,500. So at least as an initial retainer, I don't think it's much work to update it. I'm throwing it out there since it's on here and I can have the opportunity to touch on these things. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know we put it out, and, you know, when we did the RFP, we put that as a
Yeah.
separate section.
It does need updating. I don't think it would take a lot of money and I'm not sure it's something that it could come off your plate since it really requires a historic preservation architect. So, food for thought. Thanks for your time.
So Mayor, 2 things. So we'll update the 1 category to a 10.
Mhm.
We'll put together the projects on there and update it. We'll have that. And I want to make sure I'm going to say that every meeting, right? The goal is 5-year maintenance plans for vehicles, small engines. What's our project prioritization or rec prioritization, maintenance prioritization, right? All of this data is being centralized right now. So we have a clear understanding to make decisions, right? When we look holistically, but then we can also dig in. So in Rich's day job, his fair job, his night job, right? We're also working to get that data in a place that can be updated, so we can save all of that. So we're working on it, and this is
Great
super helpful.
tool. It's a
Yeah.
great tool.
It's super helpful, so, awesome.
Great, thank you. Pocket parks.
Yes, as you know, do you want to take this, Drew? You want me to take it?
I can provide a quick update, because I think I provided the last one, if that's cool with the governing body. So, we went and solicited more information. The goal was to talk to Colliers and understand implications from making modifications to the parks and what that does. At the last governing body, we talked about softening, we talked about minor versus major, we talked about removing things, we talked about all these different components. So here's the information that we have received as of date. Now, what I will predicate it on is that the grant is in its 10th year, right? It was awarded in 2014. And the reason I raise that is because what we've been told is that our applicability for other similar grants diminishes with the success rate to get it, whether or not we have a grant open. I'm not saying that that should influence our decision, but it's a data point, right? What we found out was that whether we make a minor or major modification or change the design, hence requiring a modification, the design cost is 30 to 50K, and it adds 6 to 12 months to get approval from DEP. That's it. We were under the impression we can make minor modifications and it would be a much quicker process. That was corrected after Collier spoke with their DEP subject matter expert. So really the inflection point that we have, right, the decision we have to make is if we're into remove the stairs, which then changes the bulkhead height, if we're in to soften, if we want to go revisit extending, oh, this is another point for Batten. The DEP previously, so I'm going back, I don't know how many years, stated we could not extend the boat ramp, and we shouldn't call it boat ramp.
Yeah,
We'll address that in a
right.
hot second, because you can't get full boats in and out all the time, but let's call it a boat ramp in quotations right now. The extension of the boat ramp, they had a hard line, literally you can do it to here. Then there was a question on the west water break. So there's like a bunch of rocks on the east water side, the west water break. And the DEP said absolutely not, unless we added a fishing pier. So we would have to have significant major modifications to do it. So that was the Batten area. So the inflection point is if we collectively assess, we want to change the design of these two, right? And we remember we have the bulkhead data point, right, of what's going on with the bulkhead. Okay, we're talking 30 to 50 in redesign and add 6 to 12 months to get DEP approval. That doesn't mean we're out to bid. That doesn't mean we selected the contractors. We write 6 to 12 months. That was the best that I could get out of Colliers.
That's just for Grange.
Yeah, well,
There's no
that too.
talk of changing Batten.
If we want to add a fishing pier, I don't know where we get the money, but at the end of the day, it's a minor major modification. It triggers the 6 to 12 months, right? So I
So the initial,
offer
just
that.
to clarify that, some of the initial language about removing, there was something about removing elements. Were you talking about trash cans and things, or removing impervious surface?
Removing
Stairs.
if we remove, well, I don't know what you're asking. So
Okay, so let me clarify my question. There's some back and forth that included, if we de-intensify.
yeah,
Then it doesn't trigger a minor modification.
if we were to remove from what Colliers told me, right? If we were to remove the trash cans, which they said, I don't know why you want to do that. They literally wrote that. I don't know why, but let's just say we did, right? That would be fine. Removing the stairs would be okay if it did not change the design. The stairs were built and designed in such a way around the height of the bulkhead.
Yeah.
So when you remove the stairs, the design of the bulkhead changes, which then triggers a modification. I'm just recanting what Collier said,
Well,
right?
it was a little bit difficult to follow because I was keeping up with that, but I remember thinking, I have questions about that because removing this, it's an assumption that removing the stairs, you could, let's just say, you left the bulkhead the way it was, it's 12, I don't know what the height is, but it necessitates a grade change the way it's designed.
Right.
And that helps shorten the run to, it diminishes the grade change, so it's easier to get down there on the stairs. But if the stairs went away, you could still have that.
You could, but then you have the 6 foot of river rock
I know.
that slows down the water. So if that comes out as well, you have to think through the stormwater aspect. You also have, and I forget what it's called, I'm gonna call it a grate, right? A very long grate,
It's a trench.
right? That would be removed,
And a gabion system
right?
or riprap.
But the point is, it's not as simple as just removing the stairs and remove the patio of it and leave everything else is, right? When you start removing these components, the design and the intent of it changes, hence triggering the need for modification and the redesign of the drawings, which then triggers the time.
How much did you say it would cost to redesign the whole?
30 to 50 grand is I've asked for a conservative estimate from Colliers, 30 to 50 grand. And I asked for a conservative timeline for DEP, 6 to 12 months, because I'm not trying to do frankly. So it's 100 grand, it takes 10 years, right? Like,
So additional data, because I did do that research you and I checked
Yeah.
out quickly, and I was able to get a number, just if we were just gonna. I don't know where we are with this, not making any assumptions, but it seemed to me we might want to know the cost of just replacing a bulkhead. Because, I mean, that is the burning issue. We need to replace the bulkhead there. Basically, we're looking at $3,000 a linear foot for, I don't know what the length is there. It's under 100 feet, so let's call it 100 feet. It's less than that, but it's 300,000, let's just say, worst case. But that's a real number, that's not a 2022 number. And that's a 12-foot high bulkhead. But it doesn't have
Are we
the.
gonna end up paying less than that though after the grant? Less than 300,000? Don't we get
It
250 on
depends on what we
500?
do.
189 is Batten and Grange, I think is 389.
519, but 389 is the bulkhead.
Yeah, so
With the
519.
deck
So we would
and
end up,
that rock, it's,
so we would end up paying less money, but we want to pay an extra 50 or 60 grand to not have stairs? I don't know.
That removes the intention and that removes the waterfront access. So
We
that
wouldn't
part
get
won't
the
be,
grant.
we wouldn't get the grant.
And, oh, then we would,
No, the
no,
stairs,
but it would be 300,000, you said.
yes.
you.
Yeah,
just
so what
for the
that's what I
bulkhead,
mean, is we'd be paying effectively, since it's since we're getting 250K in grant money back. We're gonna end up paying about 250 grand. And she's saying the bulkhead's 300 grand, so we're paying $50,000-$60,000 to not have stairs if we just do a bulkhead. We're paying.
And
to not have
or
stairs.
100.
I'm gonna agree, yeah.
Or
And the
100.
additional design costs.
Redesign.
I don't know.
So I just want to make a clear-headed statement about the design. I think the design is inconsistent with the values of Fairhaven. I think if the people were asked, they would not have wanted something this industrial with this much impervious surface, with a big, these boulders wrapped in metal. I think the design is seriously flawed and disconnected from the way people like to go there for the shady, quiet knoll that it is. And in my opinion, the design is a real problem.
It's a safety concern right now, right? I've seen where step on it.
The
You
bulkhead,
step through it right now?
Step right through, right.
Oh, you
there's a fence
step through it.
I think, so I agree with you. If we had all the time in the world to design
Mhm.
what we wanted, that would be an ideal state, but someone could lose their life.
Well, we have to
So-
separate the design from the need for a bulkhead. That's what I'm trying to say. Doing the right thing there doesn't have to mean implementing a bad design just to get 250
No, but
grand.
he's saying that they need to redesign it, which may add 6 to 12 months for
I know.
DEP.
I don't-
Wait a second, they don't have to redesign, she's suggesting just a bulkhead, I mean.
I'm
So
still
then
asking
but then
for
you
design
get,
for
you're getting rid of
my-
the stairs, which means you have to redesign.
You're
the
getting-
Triggers a redesign the
No,
drawings, that triggers the 6 to 12 months.
You'd walk away from the grant, guys.
No, forget the grant. He's saying
It requires recoordination with
approval,
DEP, which takes
regardless
6
of
to
when
12
we do the
months.
grant, right?
You would
Correct.
have to,
Just
you have
the
to
bulkhead.
resubmit
Yes.
for a bulkhead.
You'd have to resubmit to the DEP and college's assessment at 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
That's why it's two
30 to
competing
50
factors.
grand.
Yeah, let's say the design was free, right? Let's even say it was free. It's 6 to 12 months adding timeline, right?
Okay.
We are, this is gonna be one of our most difficult decisions that we
It
make right
really
here,
is,
that
yeah.
we've done in 5 months.
It's not difficult for me. Quite truthfully, I don't really love the idea of these parks at all, and you all know that. But if we're gonna do them, I wanna do them for the least amount of money possible. At the end of the day, that's to me, and it sounds like that's doing them as they're presently designed through the grant. I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with it, but at the end of the day, we have this pile of food on our plate, we gotta eat it. And this is the best way to eat it.
Is a half a loaf better than no loaf? Well, depends on how hungry
Just
you
want to
are,
call out,
you
you
know?
you have done food metaphors and dino
I'm hungry.
metaphors the entire
Yeah,
year.
hungry too.
Go ahead.
I'm hungry.
Assuming, let's just assume for a moment that we say we agree with the mayor and we move forward with this. What are the steps when, how, what do we have in front of us? Because that's the thing I don't understand. What I do understand is 50 grand more and we don't get a park really, and we have to wait a year. Like, what's the
We
alternative?
asked Colliers, they gave us the proposal to finish it and get everything out to bid, and that's in your packet.
Can I just say too, I don't think my number was right. It's not 50 grand more. It's a lot more than that because
That's right.
then you gotta pay for the boat ramp. And then you're not getting the 250
We would be able to, we would have to bifurcate the drawings, and I didn't ask that question, how much that would cost, but we've been down that road before. We would have to bifurcate the drawings. We could put that in and only get 90 grand for that. And
So it wouldn't be as much, but it would still be a bigger
In
spread.
fairness, yes.
What
Yeah.
about Hance Road? I mean, weren't we using some of that money, that grant
No.
money on Hance?
We agreed 3 governing body meetings that we were gonna pull hands off and go back to the drawing board. And the other angle with that was that the grant application's now up to $500,000.
And
So
they
there's
apply.
greater money. So the goal was, let's get these two off our plate, get the money going, so Monmouth County sees that we're actually moving forward with it, and then we can look to see what the government body wants to prioritize for the next grant, because $500,000 is a lot more.
You want to call for a motion?
Right now, we have 250, right?
250, but we have to spend 500 to get 250. It's not like I got $250 sitting in the vault, right? You spend 500 grand, they write you a check for 250. Fair.
I understand the
Right,
motion, but what was the,
And they've
there
already
was something
looked at the
about the
plans.
renaming of the,
Yeah, so I just,
What's that?
I do not want to have another chicken discussion, so please give me 30 seconds, okay? When I hear boat ramp, I think I can use it any time of the day and I could drop any size boat there, right? Look at Rumson, they have, like, you can take a freaking 70-foot boat. Here, you can't, during low tide, you cannot use the boat ramp as effectively as high tide. I.e., there will be certain size boats that you cannot get on the trailer at low tide. I think it needs to be renamed. It's a small craft ramp.
Small craft marine access.
Right.
Wow. So, yes, I 100% agree. I think it needs to be qualified. And then what that means is the fees associated to use it should be adjusted as well, right? So I have a hard time calling it a boat ramp because it's
I
not.
do too, based on the discussions that I participated in,
Yeah.
I agree completely with Councilman O'Hara.
Because I don't know what's entailed from a,
but we don't, that, I asked,
That's a
thinking
big
maybe that would come into this, but that's just the naming thing. It has nothing to
Yeah,
do
you
with
can call
our
it if you
decision.
want to call
Okay.
it. Free
So-
Christmas.
I do have to reiterate that I believe that we're sort of in another situation of our own making, not maybe us here, but where we've delayed maintenance or repairs, and have found ourselves in a really difficult position of having to consider whether or not we want to spend $500,000 to make improvements that we don't want, just so that we can get a bulkhead
Yeah,
that was needed 10 years ago.
right.
And I'm very concerned about this pattern that we're being confronted with. I think collectively, I don't want to speak to the whole body, but I want to express to our lead staff, we cannot continue to be in that position.
Well, this is the
It's not.
2014 grant.
Well, the repairs were tied to a grant, which maybe in retrospect could have been approached differently. When maintenance and repairs come up, let's consider them for what they are on their own. It's a conversation we can have further if you want. I just want to put
I
that.
think it's noted, and just, I think all of us up here too, let's remember that as we make decisions, that we don't want to push problems down the road to other governing bodies and have, well, good. Are we making a motion today on this? Or
we have a resolution to move forward.
To award
Colors?
to Colliers Engineering
Yeah.
to complete the design and get this project.
This
out
is
to
a
bid.
very industrial design, guys. It's
That's-
going to completely change that part.
That's already on the consent though, right?
No, we
It's
have
not on the
added.
consent?
We didn't add it because we wanted to make sure you discussed it first in this.
So are we gonna add it to the consent?
You could?
Or should we just make a motion right now?
Because it's not on the agenda, the public doesn't know.
Well,
and
why don't we, before making a motion right now, why don't we at least get to public comment and
At
just,
least,
just
for
see
heaven's
if,
sakes, yes, at least.
and I think that's a,
Did every member of the governing body see the environmental commission memo on the pocket parks?
you know, I think it was a few weeks ago.
It was April 10th, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, they characterized the Hants or the Grange project as the pathway to nowhere. The Hants, they said those plans are not conducive to what Hants could be. It's a treasure, it could be very nice, and basically gave us a questionnaire note about that, and but a path nowhere in order to repair a bulkhead seems a pretty high price to pay. I'm done.
Thank you. Next up, we have short-term and seasonal rental ordinance. I could actually speak on that real quick, unless you were prepared.
No, go
Okay.
ahead. It was updated in an email.
Okay, so it was originally, to answer your question, it was originally gonna be on introduction for tonight. We moved it back to workshop because in the information that Greg presented, he had an exception for people that wanted to rent out one room of their house. And he had said the reason was that he was making the exception was for the Habitat for Humanity affordable housing. But I pointed out to him, I disagreed with that. Just because it's affordable housing, I don't think there's any exception that should be made. We still don't want the affordable housing being rented out by the day or by the week. It's not short-term housing. We want a more permanent resident to be living in there. But I also didn't want to make that decision for everyone. I thought it was important to have some discussion. I also want to point out, I don't know, Teresa, did you share this with me? That
I found it.
Airbnb is pushing exactly, and this came out after I disagreed with the way it was presented to me, that Airbnb is now trying to push as a matter of their business, the renting of just rooms as options instead of house rentals, which is another reason why.
Because they're running into this problem. right?
Well, I think they're probably just running into a problem on how to make money, and this is a opportunity for them to make more money.
Don't have to rent out the whole house, rent out a single room.
Rent out a single room.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
I mean, I'm just as against that as I am against renting out a house. I don't think we're trying to run hotels here in Fairhaven, and that's what that sounds like to me. So I wanted to see if you guys were all in agreement. If you were in agreement, we would give the instruction to Attorney Cannon to redraw it, and it would just basically ban any situation underneath that 125 day threshold.
And they'd have to have a permit, which would have certain language and controls in it.
And we did discuss, it was noted that you brought up, I thought it was a great point last time, that people, when they have renovations, they want to stay in town. We discussed that the average amount of time, if someone's moving out of their house for renovation, they're probably moving out of their house.
6 to 12
Yeah,
months.
it's gonna be longer than that. And we also figured that, you know, the one other thing to bring up that I think should be brought up for discussion is, do you think that we want landlords to register with the borough? In other words, when a landlord is gonna rent to a tenant, when obviously it's gonna have to be more than 125 days. And I'd love some feedback from Teresa too. I think she was against it the first time she heard it, but I don't think it's the worst practice in the world to and really without that, it's hard also to you know, enforce some of the rules that we're asking for here.
So can I just have a background?
Sure.
Just a second.
So right now, we don't
We don't ask
have
anybody.
anything, right?
We have
landlord registrations.
Yeah.
Greg told me that we've been done.
The landlord registration requirement is new at the city level, so we probably just implemented it recently.
No.
years, it's a state law.
If somebody's
going to evict, they have to
But short-term rental, it's whether they register each time they have.
Yeah, on a short-term rental, is it?
Yeah, what we don't have is we don't have a CO process, you know. where-
That's what I meant. I think
and a
that's what
whole
he was talking
different-
about.
That's a whole different
I find that so
undertaking
unusual.
that would require, you know.
If we did that, though, we
staffing, someone to actually perform the inspections, and with the CO process, you usually have a checklist of, you know, what is acceptable. You can do them for, you know, change of ownership, and you can do them for rentals.
And
So
you
could
can do
could
it.
you just do them for rentals and not for ownership if you wanted to?
I think it already
Or,
is.
or is it like,
We don't have a CO process if you're selling your house, you don't need a CO in period.
Smoke detector.
I have, I have 2 questions. Yeah.
Well, smoke detectors, did they replant the trees that they took down to build it? Did they, that's what that CO process is. It's buttoned up. And you check the boxes, you're good to go. I think we need it.
But we don't have one.
Well,
I think what she's saying too, what I'm hearing is if we're gonna have one, we're gonna have to staff it. That's what it sounds.
2 questions. So when you're saying single room, right, are we like, is it 1 room, 2 rooms, 5 bedroom? Is it really in combination?
What I'm saying is, we don't allow any exceptions.
Perfect. I'm 100% on board. My question on what you sparked, I don't know what direction we'll go with the landlord registry. So I'm gonna look at Chief real quick. So Chief, you know how in like, in a school or any building, you have a visitor sign in, so you know how many people are in the building in case there's a fire, right? You know, you gotta look for them. Is there any equivalent of that with a house? Like if I have somebody renting space or a landlord renting it, do I need to know how many people are there to account for them in an emergency situation?
I don't think, no.
Then,
Do we have, Allison, do we have
Thanks.
do we have a lot of, you said there's registration, do we have a lot of rentals right now, like in the town? Like, what's the,
we have quite a bit.
100 homes, 200 homes?
More or less than that.
Less than that,
It's less than 10%.
more than 50?
Yes.
I looked at, 2,500. I
More than
found that there were,
75?
I found that there are, I found that there's 4 active rentals available in town.
Okay.
They range in price from $6,000 a month to $8,000 a month, which is $200 a day or $266 a day, depending on which range, end of the range you're at. So there's 4 open right now. There are 3 on Airbnb. The 3 on Airbnb, 2 of them are at $200 a night, roughly $220, $230. One of them is $2,100 a night.
I saw that one.
And it's on the water.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to give a little bit, because I didn't see it on the agenda, so I didn't know where that went, but it's actually here. I just wanted to give people relative numbers as to like what's going on, what's available.
Can I just start you, is it the same homes or another 3 other homes? So we're talking about 7 houses?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I saw. They were separate. So what I found with the $2,100 home, it's from June 1st to June 7th. So clearly they're leaving town for a week. They're probably traveling somewhere. They may want to offset their costs of travel where they've got carry costs with their current, you know, home. And that's probably what's going on with that rental. The other ones, you know, look like they were cottages or something like that.
We're talking out of 2,100 households, right? Give or take.
2,200 homes.
Right, so
So it's
7 out of 20.
1/5 of 1% of the homes right now are on the market right now.
Yeah.
So it's not even close to 1%.
The reason I bring that up is to raise the impact of what we're talking about here. Same thing on the chicken thing.
And you want to, truthfully, you want to knock it out before something changes and then it grows and it is a problem.
I mean, in this
So-
case, I'm completely in favor of eliminating it. I
Yes.
just don't think there should be any
I agree.
rental
Same
below 4 months.
Okay,
I agree.
we're all on the
Yeah,
same page? then?
completely.
Can I just point out, thank you for bringing it this way. Appreciate
Yes,
that.
Clark, I
It was
wrote
worth
that.
the extra
Thank you,
beat.
thank you, Mayor.
The last thing you mentioned about banning, what was the last note you mentioned? When you were all on the same page? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, so we're not providing any
The single
exceptions whatsoever.
No single rooms, no double
Yeah.
rooms, no doggy
But
doors,
basically, we're
nothing.
banning any short-term rental underneath 125 days.
And I think Greg has some language for that.
Yes, I think that's already.
And then I think,
That is-
I think there needs to be a secondary conversation over the CO situation. I'm not saying for right now, just what that means and, you know, I think we need to discuss it and make sure we have a plan here, just in general.
I agree.
Okay.
Do you want somebody to take that away, one of the committees, and come back? Do you want to ask, like?
Is
well,
that,
It's gonna impact, well, you know.
Does that become personnel?
You're gonna have to staff
So is that a personnel discussion?
I think we should talk about
It's a budgetary discussion.
the
Finance,
advantages.
start with finance? Or start with,
It's a start, but you don't have it budgeted for this year, I can tell you that.
but you're a magician. We've already discussed that.
And we can keep saying that, Josh, but it's just not a true statement.
That's my magic. I
And-
just keep saying it. I
And
think
what
it'll
we
just
can't do
happen.
is, we can't, if we, in theory, got that ordinance passed by the end of the year for COs, and you come up with your checklist, and you do it for change of ownership, and you do it for rentals. Once the ordinance is in place, you could hire somebody for 2024 to staff the position.
Got it.
And then the CO, our CFO could anticipate revenue based on that ordinance. So it would be a better project to maybe put on our calendar for the middle of summer, once we've got some of this other stuff off, and take a look at and decide how we're gonna go ahead and, you know.
But
move
we're
forward.
talking about a part-time position, this will not require a full-time person.
No, it would be a
But this
part-time
isn't-
depending, and a lot of towns, what they do is, you know, you pay a fee, and it depends on how quickly, in towns that do summer rentals and stuff, you pay a big fee, because you turn them off very quickly, but if we're only doing 125 days for a rental, for argument's sake, you establish a fee for that, and a fee for when you change ownership. And really what a lot of towns do it for is they want to make sure when someone buys a house that, you know,
Yeah.
the sidewalk's not cracked, there's things that you have to do. The only exception would be if they, you know, it's a knockdown, you get a letter that says no one's gonna occupy this house, so none of that criteria matter for the CO, because it can't be, it's uninhabitable until, if they're gonna knock it down with a new house on the property.
Why don't we wait
This-
in the summer
Yeah.
and we'll see if we can make it a budget neutral ad for 2024.
I'm happy.
The other thing I was gonna say, if we're gonna put this into motion, I just want to be considerate of rentals that have already happened or might be in process. So maybe pick a start date, like September 1st or something like that, to give enough time for whatever was already in the works or had already been signed beforehand to sort of wash out the system and give the market some time to absorb this information as well.
Well, one thing that I want on that note from Greg and Andrew would be if we pass that ordinances, right, the legal agreement, the rental agreement that was signed as far as how long you can stay in there, all of that, what happens, right? If we pass this ordinance, say no more, you know, X, but there's an agreement somewhere that somebody signed with a homeowner, are we gonna put a homeowner at risk for some type of
So you're gonna grandfather.
lawsuit? I don't know, I just
For
think.
something that's already signed, which I think is
It
something
really
that's
has
yeah.
time to cure the issue, the problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't require it.
That's fair.
All right, we are going to move along to public comment on agenda items only. This is only for agenda items. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Please try to observe a time limit of 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the public that has a comment on agenda items only? Yeah, pocket parks are on the agenda. That's correct.
Since you asked for public comment, I would say, you know, there's a grant in place, but I would prefer after all of these years to have the area as natural as possible. And I did want to ask if you're going to give people that live in that area an opportunity to comment. You had said it would be good to hear from people in the area to get their opinion from one person.
Sure. My answer on that, thank you for your feedback. My answer on that is, as Borough Administrator Cascarone has mentioned, they've been discussing these plans since 2014. So I think everyone's been given ample time to comment, and that's why we have these council meetings, so that people can comment and lend their opinion. I'm sure that some of the opinions from the neighborhood have been shared through council members that are up on the dais. And I would say at this point, I feel like I've talked about these parks ad nauseum. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I'm just so familiar with all the different, you know, components of what's going on here. So I'll just go back to what I said before is, I don't disagree with you. If I had my choice, I think I would agree I'd want it as natural and impervious as possible. Is that the correct? As pervious, I want it as pervious as possible. I think the concern here is is it a life safety issue? Are we
It's the
going with that?
bulkhead.
It's
The
it's the
bulkhead.
bulkhead, and if we're gonna do it,
Separate the bulkhead from.
it's gonna cost us a lot more money, a lot more. And to me, I mean, personally, I would, you know, I'd be okay with not doing them at all, but we can't do that because of the bulkhead. So if we're gonna do it, I wanna do it for less money. And 6 to 12 months faster.
We have to live with the decision.
But I hear you. I'm, Marty,
Well, there are some decisions that for the sake of $30,000 plus, whatever it is.
it sounds like it'd be closer to $150,000, $200,000 difference. Yeah.
Let's get
it's-
clear about it. We should figure that out.
Yeah,
We can come back with what the final cost differential was. It's a crappy situation.
It
It is.
super crap.
We all agree on that part of it.
And I'm not gonna
And
use the
nobody,
superlative words that I have.
I think it fits.
But it's extreme, there's a tremendous amount of frustration at the decision point that we have to make. If time was, it's not even the money, if time was on our side, it'd be a no-brainer, right? But it's multifaceted, but
and I've seen members of the dais go back and forth on the decision multiple times. That's how tough a decision is. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else for the public comment on agenda items only? Let's bring them in, Allison.
first person is Stephen Callis. Mr. Callis.
Hey, Stephen.
Hello, Mayor and Council. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Thank you for this opportunity to address you. I appreciate it. I'd like to address your favorite topic, non-domestic animal ordinance. My main and only concern is public health. How do we ensure properties and animals are properly maintained and cared for to prevent an environment that causes a public health issue? I understand there's a permit process, but are these properties ever inspected? Are these properties required to maintain a pest control contract? As everyone in town knows, we have very tight lots, neighbors, are right next to each other. If one property is affected, it's likely to spread to others. I can share with the council, last fall and winter, our neighborhood was experiencing infestation, no less than 5 homes that I know of. Pest control professionals confirmed that non-domestic animals significantly increase that risk. I can share with you personally, from November of last year through the end of February, we dealt with these issues on a daily basis, despite having a pest control professional for the past almost 20 years. So once these things occur, they're very difficult to mitigate. So my ask of you is, I want every resident to be able to enjoy their property, but please consider the majority of residents to be able to enjoy their property as well without a public health concern, because that is a serious thing. I must say, and I'm a big supporter of the mayor and council. I was a little disappointed tonight when, you guys are joking about it. Everyone's laughing it up with the exception of Councilwoman Hoey. It's not a joke to the 5 families that dealt with this for months on a daily basis. It's a public health issue. I don't think anyone in Fairhaven wants to be known for that. And I would just ask you to take that into account If, you decide to go forward with permits, I'll respect your decision. However, could there be regular inspections? Could there be a requirement for a pest control contract to mitigate the possible future occurrences that occur? Because I can speak for myself and the 4 other homes that literally had it worse than I did, most of them, as far as public health issues and having to spend money out of their own pocket that is not reimbursed. This is not a joke. It's not funny. And quite frankly, I was just going to say, Councilwoman Cole, I believe it is, and I'm paraphrasing, maybe someone left the birthday out. It's not funny to me or the 4 other families that dealt with this for months.
Stephen, thank you for your comments. That's 3 minutes. We appreciate your time. I can assure you the amount of time that we've spent on non-domestic animals and non-domestic animal licenses, we've put more time into this than other issues that weigh very heavy on the Borough of Fairhaven as well. The laughter up here is just because we all get along, and I think the amount of time we spent on this tonight as well shows how seriously we take the situation. We thank you for your comments. We're definitely going to consider them as we make decisions on what we want to do moving forward. But I'm pretty proud of the commitment of every single person on this dais to make the Borough of Fairhaven a better place. So thank you for your time. Anyone else, Allison?
Yeah, hi, good evening.
Hey, Pete, how are you?
Hey, Mayor, Council, nice to be involved here. I just had one question about the short-term rental. I looked on the ordinance under the definition section, and I know it's proposed, but it says the resident for a period of 120 days or fewer, but then there's another sentence that says must have a minimum stay period of 7 consecutive days. Can somebody speak to that definition? Because the 7 days doesn't seem to apply with everything that's being discussed. And why is it in there?
Where is that on the actual?
It's in the definition section under short-term seasonal rental, parenthesis, also referenced as STR 4-4.2 definitions. It's just a little confusing because then there's another definition right below it that suggests 90 days. And I'm trying to figure out what the difference between the two of them is.
I think in either case, Peter, and really our attorney could probably clarify it better, but correct me if I'm wrong, that in either case there'd be a registration mechanism in place that would further qualify or vet the whether or not you could in fact, it pre-qualifies the applicant in a sense as have to be the owner. I may have summarized it.
I'm just confused about the 7 day. Why is there 7 days in there? Because that to me, that would suggest that a minimum stay period of 7 days. And then it says any advertisement must include this minimum stay requirement, meaning, yes, 7 days is the minimum when it really should be 125 days, correct?
I agree with you. It does sound confusing to me. Can we?
Can you, I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Okay, so we're on page 2. It's about halfway down the page. It goes property, responsible party, and then short-term seasonal rental.
Right.
Under there, if you get to line 3 to 4, actually line 2 to 4, if you read the whole thing. First, it says.
So the 125-day requirement. So this is 125 days or fewer consecutive days.
Right. So that means that you can't have anything fewer than 125 days. But then the next sentence kind of, where did the 7 day thing come in? I remember in the last time this was discussed, Attorney Cannon brought up, he said something about, oh, less than 7 days would be considered this. Maybe it's a holdover from that. I don't know, because I know that I don't have the original text in front of me.
We are
Lesson said it is not.
You don't need that
constitutional
sentence,
rental.
right?
Right, it'd be more of a seasonal
Right.
rental.
That's what I do.
It's differentiating between the two of them.
I mean, if it were me, I would have that 7-day thing stricken.
I would agree. We're,
You wanna take that out?
yeah,
know what that means, yeah.
seasonal doesn't matter to us. It's 125 days.
And you specifically
You're
talked to
basically
Greg
combining
He
about.
did. I think he knows.
I think it was just an overstep. I think it's a good catch on Peter.
Probably.
I think it's a really good catch, Pete.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, it shouldn't be in
It's a
there.
really good catch.
Also in that ordinance, we're taking out section 4 and adjusting 5, because it doesn't have to go before the planning board.
Yeah, and then there's another, there's this, the next definition down mentioned something about 90 days. I don't know if there's the two of those have to be combined into one, but
We workshop
We're
this
gonna get
again,
revisions.
after you update it.
Yeah, we're gonna,
What was the other provision that this gentleman just mentioned?
It starts with dwelling units for more than 90 continuous days.
I see.
It's the next paragraph, yeah.
120 pages or less.
Yeah.
Awesome.
yeah.
Peter, anything else on your end?
nope, that's all I got. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Anyone else, Allison? Sure. Hi, Bonnie.
Hello, everybody. Bonnie from Sylvia, 115 Baton Road. Just about the pocket parks. It sounds like your minds are made up about Grange, and even though I'd like to see more green infrastructure instead of gray infrastructure, I just hope going forward with Chance, there's a lot more consideration going into how that is designed and you know, involving public input. Anyway, that's my hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Bonnie, 100% yes. I want to validate that. 100% yes on him.
Hey, thanks.
And all projects really.
Well, yes.
Community development includes the community.
We have Kim Carroll on.
Hi, Kim.
I just want to back up my husband because, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's just as much as like the issue right now might not seem like an issue. We have dealt with this through the winter. It's a winter issue. So as much as right now we might not be dealing with the rats, it could happen again starting in the fall. So I just want you to take consideration of it because it was a rough winter, okay? And as much as I know my husband said you could all laugh about it, if you could sit there hearing scratching in the night all night long, it was a very difficult winter. So as much as they've cleaned up the issue, it's amazing. Please take into consideration moving forward with this because it's not going to end. We live literally across the street from them. And yes, their yard looks amazing right now, but we're still going to have to deal with it at some point. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kim. It should be noted that immediately when we found out about this, we sent the Monmouth County Health Commission out multiple times. You know, they looked at the property, you know, based on the ordinances we have, we've done everything we can, and we continue now to discuss to go one step further and change the actual code in our borough, quite truthfully, based on this one situation. So again, I'm sorry to hear that you had that situation going. I don't think I ever received that specific feedback, although I received other feedback from the neighborhood as far as what's going on. You know, I feel badly that you had to deal with that, but I do feel proud about the way that we handled this in the last few months and also tonight. And if you check into our meetings constantly, you know, we always try and add a little levity to what we're doing up here. Unfortunately, that's my style. So anyone else, Allison?
Hi, this is Sarah Schiavetti, 27 Cooney Terrace. I guess I have a question, which is just, can we get a little clarity on what the next step is for the Grange plans. I think I'm understanding that you're voting on it tonight on the consent agenda, or is that not true?
They'd have to add it to the agenda.
I really
If they
think
decide
that
to.
we have to make sure that we let people know that we're.
Yeah.
going for this.
And I guess that's my comment following the question, is just that, you know, I echo Bonnie's comment about moving ahead and looking forward and making sure that we're doing this the right way. That's how we all felt about things a couple of weeks ago with the last report on the pocket park. I don't think people are on this call because they felt like they were in a good place with the planning and it changed as of tonight. I think many residents have felt that way about different projects that are going on right now. I know there was a project added without even the council's knowledge to the agenda at the last meeting I was on. If we're moving ahead and we're promising that all of these projects are going to be done better, I just feel like many of us have heard that for the past couple of months, and that doesn't seem to be how things are being done.
So I'm okay with, if we want to push that resolution back one meeting, to give the rest of the public the opportunity to discuss it, that's okay with me. I got to be honest with you, Sarah, you could bring in 100 people here. Me personally, I'm just one person up here, to convince me that they don't want stairs there. Not wanting stairs there is not worth six figures to me. But if I do agree with, I was very unhappy at the last meeting with the other project that moved forward. So from that standpoint, with not pushing it forward without giving people an additional opportunity to lend their opinion, that I would be fine with and I agree with. So.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not even saying that I think everyone's going to come in and say that, but you know, there's just a disconnect between the amount of notice that we get on projects. I know we got about 4 hours of a business day on Friday for notice for curbing on Hance to start 7:30 on Monday morning, when we were acknowledged that we would get a little bit more lead time than that, considering the significance of the project. It's more to me about the process, and I will end it here and just say that it's been pointed out to us before that moving forward, things were going to be different in terms of community feedback and decision making. And maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but it feels like that's not until the next project now.
So Sarah, one thing I do want to point out is the difference between the discussion at the last meeting with Fairhaven 4 is that no one up here had any discussion with the public about it at a prior meeting. There was no discussion whatsoever. It came out of nowhere. That's not what we're talking about here. We've discussed, as I mentioned, these parks have been discussed since 2014. It's 2023, and there's a life safety issue right now, as it's been explained to me, in the pocket park. I think all 7 of us on the dais are well aware that there's a group of people out there that would like to see pervious. They would like to see a more pervious park there. We're all in understanding. Marty also brought it up here, and I'm not disagreeing with Marty. I'm not disagreeing with you, Sarah, but I think we're all aware of all the factors, and just hearing from more people about their opinions, I'm not sure at this point it's going to move us in either direction. I want to get the problem fixed.
Yeah, and I guess again, one more thing, even though I said I would end, is just I don't know, I don't know that anyone's seen the numbers on paper. It didn't sound like there was a great understanding of what Plan A and Plan B would cost and what the savings are. And I don't know if that's something that can be provided in a way that's clear and understandable to the public as part of the discussion.
Yeah, so it's right now it's $519,000 for the 2 projects, I believe.
For just great.
Plus what?
And 189 for Batten.
So
And
what's
that
the
was
total?
fully presented and all been available 2 months ago. And it's not just a question of cost, it's a question of time, right? It's the 6 to 12 months behind. Whatever we decide to do tonight, that's fine. But what I would point out is every day that goes by, Sarah, there's a risk that we're willing to take, right? And we had 6.3 inches of rain, and we had high tide, which caused a tremendous amount of issues, right? And we dodged the bullet because the bulkhead didn't fail. So it's not as black and white. I do want to address one component, Sarah, on process. If let's just put it all on the table since you opened up the door, right? The pocket parks is a byproduct of many different reasons as to why we're here. And I'm not gonna go into every single one, but everybody up on this dais knows at least one, if not a handful of issues in breakdown and process leading to 9 years worth of conversation back and forth, right? With that said, we do have to have a realistic approach to the conditions that exist. And if you're saying that having 2 more weeks is going to allow people to feel better about a decision that might already need to be made, I think we need to have that honest conversation. But it's not a one-dimensional. This is a problematic project from a process perspective. It has been. We've acknowledged that. We have certain factors coming up against us. And I don't think I need to remind anybody a week ago what happened in our town when we had record rainfall and it was high tide at the same time, which I don't think has happened since Sandy. Right?
Yeah, and
So,
I don't taking away from that point. What I'm saying is that we've known that it's been a danger for quite some time. To be honest, it sounds familiar to the light fixture conversation we just had, you know, like I don't know. I will end it, but I just think that like there is a feeling of mismatch between saying we're going to plan ahead and not planning ahead.
Sarah, and this like you just said, this governing body is addressing it, and it's not much unlike other issues in town, like facilities, but we're addressing it.
Can I
And
just
that's, let me just finish, and then absolutely. You know, you also brought up the communication on Hance Road. The Hance project, I don't think we've ever taken as much community feedback into a project ever as we have on Hance Road. And what happened on Friday to Monday, just so you know, in that storm that went on last week, there was some significant flooding on Hance Road. And the irony of the community not wanting curbing and now getting flooding and then demanding curbing.
The community did not want curbing, just to clarify.
Sorry,
that was not the fight.
Let me just finish. I lived it. And then
it was not about curbing.
The irony then of us on the fly getting a communication from the contractor, our borough engineer working with the contractor and getting the permanent curbing put in from a Friday to a Monday, and us putting the signage up on your road in big letters in electric lights saying that we're going to do the work starting on Monday and handing out actual forms to every single resident is a success story. And I'm sorry, I disagree with you on that. I don't agree with that. I've had work being done on my roads the last 3 weeks with gas lines being replaced. We didn't have any electric sign. We didn't have any of that stuff. I haven't received a single complaint from anyone, and that doesn't mean that people aren't upset about it. But it's a quality of life issue. We're trying to fix an issue on your road and improve it. And sometimes things happen on the fly and we make decisions. And that's what we did. And I was proud of that as well. And I'm going to stick to that as we move forward. Does that mean that we can't communicate better as a borough? No, it doesn't mean that. But in this one situation, we did a great job. We really did.
Can I just,
Sure.
I'm up next.
okay.
I'm not going to talk about the construction or the timing of the communication or the trigger that resulted in the Monday start. I feel it was somewhat fraught, but Sarah, the pocket parks are a holdover. They are the remnants of a former era when improvements to public land were made by outside engineers that never spoke to local residents. And it was a process that was closed. And it resulted often, as we're seeing right now, in drawings that are done that don't reflect what residents want. That's the reality that we're in. I would like to tell you that I truly think that this is the last of that pipeline of stuff that was done before us. And I really don't like the position that we're in. I really don't. I think it's a bad design. And I also think lastly, and I'll wrap up, procedurally, we should have had the community engagement prior to any designs being done. That's what you do. It's a planning and design phase. That didn't happen. And in the absence of that, we tried to have the environmental commission give us some feedback. We got that. We agree with a lot of that. I think it reflects your point of view and others. The fact that it's attached to a failing bulkhead and that there's a grant is really what's handcuffed this governing body. We'll all vote our votes in the end, but your request to put this on the agenda is valid, in my opinion. I don't think this governing body should take action on an item that's not even on the agenda for action. Something that's on workshop is a discussion, and it's a great time for people to come and be part of the discussion or to hear the deliberations of the governing body. But when something is going to be voted on, especially something that's going to impact public land or the quality of the neighborhood, it should be on the agenda so that people have noticed. That's my 2 cents. And thank you for your comments. I appreciate where you're coming from.
I just want to offer a little bit of an alternative view because, you know, when I was here my first year as a councilwoman, we spent the entire year, and I would say a massive amount of the council's time, talking about Hance Road, talking about that sidewalk, which was envisioned as a sidewalk that would lead to the pocket park at Hance and lead to the pocket park at Grange. So this did not come out of nowhere. It was part of an integrated plan that was envisioned by a prior council and was carefully crafted along with grants that would support that vision to bring more people access to the water. So I think it's easy to forget and treat these as discrete projects. They are not. They were part of a very well-crafted vision that maybe was not properly vented, maybe it was not properly communicated, and that there was not enough discussion on the community, not just the local community who lives right there, but the whole town, because I am still continue to be of the view that at the end of the day, we serve 6,000 people, and we ought to be looking for all of them to have access to the water. And I feel very strongly about that. So I just wanted to say, let's just not forget, this was part of an integrated vision. It's being treated as little bites, because unfortunately, that's how the grant process works. The other thing I wanted to say is that, you know, yes, we should be talking to the community, and we should be reaching out to the community and get as much feedback as we want, but there's a limit to how many hours of that and how many times and how many months of that we're going to do. I cannot count right now how many times this project, this pocket park, has been on the agenda. And I think I remember very clearly that there were 2 gentlemen that presented here in great detail. And I was sitting right here and watched them go slide by slide on exactly what the project was and what the decision-making was. So I think part of my issue is that how do we improve communication without losing the ability to make decisions? Because at some point we are paralyzed. And that's exactly what happened to the Hance project. It paralyzed this council for a year to make a decision on that project. So I would just urge this council to just keep in mind that we need to have a balance between improved communication, making sure everybody's on the same page, and at the same time, mutually grounding to a halt, because, you know, we feel like we have to justify with a big public discussion every single decision we make, even after we've talked about it multiple times and had a massive presentation on it just a few weeks ago. So just, you know, I'm not saying we should not have another week or another waiting for the next council meeting to, I don't know what data point we would possibly go through at this stage, other than I don't like it or I do like it, but on a financial basis, you know, and the risk that someone could actually fall through that bulkhead, you know, there are some clear decisions to be made. So, you know, I'll just say we want to wait another council meeting, that's fine. But I really would like to say that we really need to stop being so apologetic at all times and act like we did not do our job and did not properly communicate things. This has been extensively discussed here. And we had professionals here who presented in person. So I just wanted to add that. let's not forget what we have done and feel like we have to do it again, or nothing will be done. That's why DPW and police station are being discussed this year, and it hasn't been figured out yet. Thank goodness, I think now we're gonna come to a close on that, but we need to make decisions, so we're not here another 10 years doing nothing. Just wanted to provide that alternative view.
But I agree with you. Lauren.
I agree with you.
Okay, so it sounds like we're putting this on the consent agenda, right, based on the feedback that I received.
Tomorrow, next meeting.
No, tonight. Allison, anyone else? We're good? All right, moving along. Old business, oh no, I'm sorry, approval of minutes, April 17th, 2023, special meeting and executive session. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Cole,
Yes.
Polly,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. April 17th, 2023, regular meeting and executive session. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Cole,
Yes.
Polly,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Neff,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. Old business, facilities update.
Does everybody want to take like a stand up real quick for 30 seconds?
Jumping jacks?
What?
Or get some water. Okay, bring up the presentation. I just want to make sure we're screen sharing, and a couple residents reach out before and just say, please screen share. And we'll get started. I think this is the most exciting PowerPoint I'm looking forward to, just so you guys know, since January.
Is it short?
No. Not short, but a lot of great stuff. We have a few inflection points we have to make as a governing body. And then we'll get there. Okay, cool. Boom. All right, I think we're good. Okay, so we're gonna start DPW first. Traditionally, I kind of switch things up. So I wanted to go first to the project schedule, so we updated this. We still have our 2 open houses. We're looking for 20 May and 31 May to have the 2 open houses. Run through a process. We have to have a decision point tonight on how it's facilitated. Originally, it was 2 Saturdays. I got some initial feedback saying, hey, you know, some residents, their weekends are all shot because of sports and whatnot. They really liked the one day during the week and the one weekend before. So following the same format, we're gonna come with some possible design iterations. There's feedback. We kind of go back and forth, come with updated ones that all seem to work well. So I wanted to respect that. I did put down here, keep it in line with our best practice, a potential special governing body meeting on the 5th, where we, barring all the design, and this is predicated on a lot of things working out, right? But the thought process is that if the design iterations and all the feedback get us to a state like it did with PD and Community Center, we want to have the blessing from the governing body to shift from design to schematic. And a week may seem trivial as far as like the grand scheme, but given how much time we're trying to give for the construction document phase, the schematic phase, trying to align it with the PD and Community Center, which we'll talk about in a second, and then also optimizing the owner's reps and the costs that we have, that really fit well. So I'm putting that out there. We already spoke with the chief of the Technical Design and Review Committee to get him on the calendar for the 6th. The request was that the open houses be completed prior to the TDRC. That worked really well for us last time. Again, following a lot of the great things we've done. Planning board review in 20, following the same thing. The governing body during PD and Community Center agreed that if there were no significant design changes, that the mayor had the authority to approve going to the CD phase. So following on that, look to authorize out to bid in July, complete the bidding in August, select the contractor, and then swing it happens. So this is purposefully 4 to 6 weeks behind PD. I'll get to Gantt chart later in a second, but there's a reason for that. It's a reason on the rack and stacking. Next slide. So I want to go over some updates. So architectural, the initial architectural design based on the program requirements we did back in, I don't know, January, February, done. We're looking to go down the MEP, mechanical engineering, plumbing, and LVD, low voltage design. from a site design, we wanted to come up with a couple design iterations to inform the first open house. So there's a tremendous amount of feedback from the governing body, residents, Maple Ave, Allen Street, there was previous designs. And we kind of looked at all those different core components. Maple Avenue, there will be a sidewalk improvement. This is part of the scope of work. We definitely want to engage the residents and talk through this as part of a larger plan that exists within the town. We did get our CTE assessment from Sherry on the trees. It's consistent. The Hendrickson side is fantastic. We just got to get rid of the ivy. The trees on Maple are that maturity buffer is great. There's some areas that have to be replaced, but it looks good. The front area, we'll talk about the buffer, that's going to be extended, but those trees there for her recommendation have to go. And then she provided recommendations to improve the buffer on 3rd Street. So think of it as like a landscaping installation, right, is the way I think about it, right? And we're just trying to put as much as we can around it. LSRP, I articulated the last time about this. There's an underground storage tank, which is a curveball for us. So we have work we have to do there. There is asbestos removal and abatement for the building only, not the roof. And then we need to close out the EOC. So remember the areas of concern, there's a handful, they have to be closed out by July of 2025 for the DEP. So originally we had this part of the project within Ron Grammer's proposal, but given that the scope has really blown out and we don't want to have to go through a middleman, middle person, middle architect, we wanted to specifically have this scope of work with Colliers themselves and work directly with them as opposed to have to funnel it through, because it goes beyond the renovation, right? There's so much more there.
I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, so the next step does require governing body approval to shift forward to start the LSRP work at the site. The roof, okay, so this is another decision point required tonight. So the team, now when I say the team, right, facilities, the architect, the structural engineers, the team, they assess that if we do the roof as not part of the project, and we just put the roof on now and then go to do the renovation work, we're gonna have rework. It's gonna lock us into design choices that we have to make now that we shouldn't. And the recommendation is to bifurcate the Borough Hall and DPW roof and have the DPW be part of the renovation. The team assessed that it adds 2 months. It is an inflection point we have to have though, because gutters, downspouts, Rich can go into it, he can speak for Ron, the structural engineers, all of them, the amount of stuff that potentially have to come back off. The work that has to be done around the, I'm gonna use the word rafters, forgive me, there's just a lot of it.
What happened when the rain, what happened with the big rainstorm at DPW?
More leaks.
We have new actual holes.
And what we're doing right now, if the governing body decides, one thing that we are also looking at is, we were always gonna take the DPW employees out of the building during the renovation, just can't have it in there. If we decide to go this route, we're getting quotes we could potentially move them out earlier. So if construction was gonna start in September and the roof was gonna be done in July, we can get them out sooner than we want to. But it was complete agreement that if the governing body is willing to lock into certain design things that have to be made to meet the schedule, like redesign, rework, I mean, we could do it, but I wouldn't be doing my justice if I didn't raise it as an inflection point. I don't think it makes sense.
Is Rich okay with the 2 months delay?
It's a delay with the roof.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, with the roof, yes.
Are you okay with that?
But are they moving out?
So close.
Are they moving out?
They're gonna move out early.
So 2 pieces. One, are you okay with bifurcating this being part of the project? Number one. Number two, would you be okay moving out of DPW earlier than the renovation started? It's a 2-part question. Am I hearing
It's a
correct?
realistic approach. Spoken with our team. It was one of my recommendations, actually.
Yes.
So.
Okay, that's all.
Okay. Good.
So yes, or you,
Yes and
we're gonna
yes.
hit the roof later, and yes, they're moving out early.
We'll get them out earlier.
We're working on that plan.
Yeah, I gotta get the quote from the trailers. Gotta make sure it's spec'd out right and everything. Yeah. The fuel tanks. So if the government recalls, we wanted a little bit more time to research that we weren't going to be quote unquote raked over the coals with the cost of replacing the fuel tanks, right? As we've done more and more research, we would incur additional cost to have Ron redo the specs that are already done. We found out that who Ron would go to is the same manufacturer for the fuel tanks that the state contractors have to go to. So there's no changing the cost there. So really it comes down to the cost of labor. So where we ultimately landed was, instead of incurring the additional cost just to go out to bid to see if we get cheaper, let's go to the other state contractors and get 2 more quotes and see if the state contractors themselves come back from a labor perspective. The cost of the fuel tank is the cost of fuel tank. Whether we go through Ron and spend the extra money to do it, or we go through the state contractor, right? So that variable is removed. Now it comes down to a question of labor. And the thought process is, well, if I'm gonna have Ron redo the design drawings and add additional scope, right, to do that, just so we can bid out, is that gonna be worth it with what we might save? And we have no indication to do that. So we want a government body direction that Rich can go out to the other state contract vendors. We get 2 other quotes and we have 3 quotes using state contract vendors to replace the fuel tank.
The other thing I would add is if it was included in the renovation project for DPW, fuel pumps is such a specialty. The GC for the overall project would have to sub that out anyway.
Good data point, missed that one. Yep, that's correct. So you're talking like 2 areas of subbing out, which not only from a time perspective, money perspective. So that's one other thing we want a governing body direction on that. That
Is this
was,
what accounts for that scope you were talking about?
say it one more time.
Is this part of what accounts for that scope changing?
No, this is not, this has nothing to do with the LSRP. No.
All right.
Yeah. BFI, so we're gonna talk BFI PD Community Center. I'm gonna wait on that. We'll come back to that data point. Next round, open houses. So confirm the open houses. These were the components that we were talking through. We need to, 1, see who's able to go, like we did during PD and Community Center, 2, who helped facilitate. So we want to pause right now for that conversation. We should do that. One's a Saturday, one's a Wednesday. Saturday hours last time were 9 to 11, worked really, really well. We tried 8 to 10, but that was too early, so we pushed it back an hour. And then if I recall correctly, when we met during the week, I think it was like 5:30 to 7, we wound up staying until 7:30, but I think there was a Shade Tree Commission meeting that night, we got kicked out. But I think having similar times makes sense, if everybody's in agreement with that. So just want to know who wants to go and where we stand. Hiring girl last time, you're in?
I'll do the 31st.
I'm the 31st.
Drew, this is a question for both of you. I know that there was some early feelers we put out, and then there was the thinking of a series of alternatives to help guide the feedback, and which I think is a great approach. This body hasn't seen these schematic or conceptual alternatives. Question is, should they see it before the open house as a base, this is baseline, this is what we're gonna be talking about.
Yeah, I plan to show that tonight and plan to send it out.
And then the other question is, what professional prepared those? That's just a personal.
Yeah, so the site iterations was done by Colliers.
Which professional at Colliers? Was it done by a designer or an engineer?
It was done by Collier's team. I mean, it's
Nobody knows?
It's Joe, it's Will, it's Kurt, and then he has that guy, Michael. I can look back at what their credentials are
Is
in
there a
there.
landscape architect involved in it?
There's a landscape expert on Colliers that's supporting, yes. And then we also plan to follow the same process with PD and Community Center.
Yeah.
Where Sherry does the gut check as well. She did that with PD
Yeah.
and went over with their landscape expert with TGP. So we plan to follow that same process. Native trees and not installed, planted, and then leveraging the CT expert. As far as the professional, and then the other thing is Ron agreed to provide iterations. He agreed to bring in materials, actually stuff that people can pick up and feel.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so, and we just got the updated design today, so.
Okay, great.
But we have, and last time we used iron gruel, I think they cost $7,000, $7,500. So we just have to make a collective decision. Do we want to go with iron gruel and do something different, someone different?
It's good to use the people who are involved. I don't know if they have the facilitating is like a function.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have that. My guess is somebody with their crew can, but it's good to use people who have some planning background and who understand the project. So hiring rule hasn't really been part of this.
Yeah.
So
Help me, Councilman Bowl, help me understand their facilitation, how that might differ than what the Councilwoman Mullenberry is doing right now.
well, I just know it's intentional. When you're a planner and you're working with a community, you're listening for what they say and what they don't say. So it's kind of a trained ear. But if we don't have a planner, then we go with the next best thing, which is the people who've been part of working on the alternatives, which is kind of why I was asking about which professional. Engineers don't make the best facilitators, no offense.
Or just facilitating the open house?
Yeah.
And I'm just, so I'm trying to understand why that's not something the co-heads of the facilities committee can do ourselves.
It's generally somewhat specialized. You could do it. You'd have to write it up and prepare it. I think it's important to have it in writing afterwards. It's a piece of work that's usually assigned to somebody. You could try to do it.
Like writing up the summary of the comments that we received?
Definitely. Again, we're listening for what they say and what they don't say.
Sure.
You sound like you want to do it.
I kind of feel like that's part of our job anyway, as the host of an open house. That was my original thought, the first open house. I personally didn't think we needed to have an outside professional summarize comments, but I think we're perfectly capable of doing that.
Can I say
You could give it a
one thing? I think $7,500 is a lot of money to pay for that, and I'm hoping that maybe we can find a way to cut the cost in half. But I thought it was valuable, whether we use Colliers or Hire & Rule, because they had the ability to take those suggestions and put them in a two-dimensional drawing. So at the second open house, they were able to show the residents, well, this is what we heard at the last open house, and we take your suggestions seriously. And then again, they did the same thing at the second open house, so that when we presented it at the next council meeting, we could actually see how the final presentation took shape.
I see what you're saying.
Did they do that or did Eli do that?
Hire
Eli.
& Rule did
Well,
that.
Hire & Rule communicated through you guys.
Well,
with-
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
But
but.
I
it-
understand,
we had something tangible that you could see what the progression was.
So
The
can you get a
added,
better
the
rate?
other value,
I would hope we could get a better rate, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, you were,
I think she's right, but I also think there was some value in that product ended up being part of what you submitted for the potential appropriation,
appropriations, which I have an update today.
which is definitely
Yeah.
essential for any kind of grant.
What do you think?
I think that whatever your recommendation is, as coherent the facility is what it is. That's what I think, and I think it's a valid point. There is value to being able to update the project for the next meeting, but I don't know that that's a deal breaker for me. So I think it should, but really, you're putting so much time into it, whatever you feel is appropriate is what I would agree with.
Who's going on the 20th? Who can commit to the 20th?
What time?
That's a Saturday, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not here.
I'd have to look at my calendar.
I want to
If I'm
encourage you to
available-
work
if I'm
professional.
available, I'd love to be.
And maybe negotiate like a $3,500 flat fee if they gotta
can
write
someone
it.
help me with that, with negotiating with Iron Rule?
Sure, you call them.
Do you mind?
Not at all.
Like a not to exceed to facilitate, we're gonna follow the same exact process and have the same exact end component. If they, I mean, are we cool with half the cost? If we can get them to a not to exceed to 3,500, is everybody okay with that?
Yeah. It's also a narrower assignment. Betsy, I can help.
Far
you with
less
that.
complex.
It's a much narrower,
Far less complex.
yeah.
Are you available the 20th? If you are, just let me know if you can be there 20th.
I'm
I
not
would
because
prefer
I
not
have
to
to-
ride.
I'm gonna be there every
No
day,
problem.
so
I just would prefer not to ride solo. I like to have
Oh, yeah.
witnesses.
It's, you need multiple.
Yeah, so I have,
So what do you?
You don't want to have a quorum though.
no, but I have Betsy and Kristen for the 31st and me.
Oh, okay.
And then for the 20th, me and 2 spots. So
I'm sorry, I'm out of town.
it's okay. Okay, we'll address it. Betsy, I'll work with you on see if we get a reduced cost. If that is, we're ready to go and we'll go from there. Thank you. Moving along, TDRC already hit this. Bets, I would like to go to the planning board on the 16th of May and just give them a status similar to what I did with PD and Community Center, foreshadowing. It seemed to work really well last time. I'll go over the open house plan and let them know we're going to do TDRC June 6th, and pending the TDRC's recommendation to be on the agenda for the June capital review. So if you're cool with that, I'd like to move forward with that. Cool. 3rd Street Phase 2 coordination. So there's kind of two pieces here, and I didn't call that out on this one. When we did PD and Community Center, we got a tremendous amount of feedback on the community center fields. Like a lot. I'm gonna say like 75% of it was. And we, Kristen and I need to centralize that information, bring it back and see if the governing body agrees that we want to make Phase 2 a priority, right? So let's put that over here for now. So what we're doing is we're anticipating that when we go to brief DPW, there's gonna be a lot of feedback outside of DPW to include 3rd Street. And the feedback that always comes up in every conversation I have is stop signs at 2 locations and pedestrian walkways. So I think we don't dissuade people at the open houses from providing that. It's a great opportunity to kill, I don't want to use that phraseology, to achieve multiple objectives at the same time. And then we can kind of centralize that. And as the Phase 2 3rd Street project gets on, if there's anything that the governing body collectively agrees we want to make a priority, throw it into that. So that was the initial thought process and just lessons learned from what we did. I mean, we had people talk about, again, I'd say 75–80% of it was the community center fields. IT, working with IT, stormwater, huge topic right now. I know we're gonna be diving into this on the 22nd of May. We're working on it. There's an AOC specific to stormwater. Everybody will be fully tracked on that. Same with Monmouth County soil erosion. Fire suppression, we agreed as a governing body to move forward with that. We're gonna fill out the application. Pre-qualified bidders, we're gonna put a pin in that because we're gonna come back to that. We are at a very inflection point and you're gonna notice me take my foot off the gas for a hot second. So I hope that kind of gives pause to what we're gonna say. Oh, okay, so we got the initial starting points. So this one, sorry, next slide. Here we go. Okay, so this one, Hendrickson, 3rd, Maple, Allen, check.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one includes a increased buffer on Allen. And if I repeat myself from the last one, I apologize, but I want to make sure everybody has the context, right? We talked about Allen being the primary pain point, the friction point. That's where all the stuff exists. So what we looked at was moving the fence back and adding more of a buffer.
Can you put away the, that key there,
Resume.
That's Allison.
Allison?
Just
Resume.
left click on the screen. No. Left,
Down
there you go.
there you go.
Okay, so that's what that buffer does. I'm gonna go, what's that, clockwise? Clockwise, okay. Then we get to 3rd Street. Sherry's assessment is that berm there has to be completely redone. The trees have to be completely replanted. A couple dying trees, and then there's an ash, which I'm told is a beetle tree.
Yeah.
And we don't want, not a beetle, no,
Ash
beetle.
borer.
Yeah, thank you. And then you have the buffer on Maple. This does not include the sidewalk site improvement. That'd be on the other side of Maple. And those 3 areas right there are the areas that the CTE assessed were problem areas. The first one is vined and dead. The second one is disease. And the third one, I believe, is diseased. And I'll send all the documentation out. Then the Hendrickson side, let's talk about the landscaping area, untouched. So then we get to the recycling center. The recycling center, from what we've learned, is DPW and Rumson has implemented a best practice with the increased cardboard that comes in, right? And I want to predicate on this that we do recycling once a week, which a lot of towns don't. I found out they do it every 2 weeks. But so what we did was, for this design iteration, it's not final, this is purely a draft, right? But to limit the amount of site work, we said, okay, is there any way we can leverage the best practice? They have a full pull around, right? But so what we did was we said, all right, let's add that and have an entire area dedicated to cardboard. And then we said, all right, well, how do we alleviate some of the parking initially, right? We talked about cut throughs and stuff, and we'll get more feedback from the residents. But then we added actually more further offsite improvements so that cars can get in there and be off the street. So this was kind of like design one. I'm not going to like dive into it. You'll get the feedback. We'll have the open houses. We'll have another governing body meeting to look at it. Was that
Drew, is that recessed area along Allen, the curve is recessed there to reflect parking or speeding or?
Yeah, a place where cars can pull off. Okay,
And you have room for four?
four
Looks like you
more,
have 4 spots.
correct. It's 20 foot, is it, it's 20 foot a car? I mean, in theory?
Yeah.
Okay, that's how we did. Okay, cool, yes. All right, so then we got really creative. We said, all right, like, let's really think about this, and this kudos goes to Rich. Can we reduce the size of the DPW? We'll just ask ourselves, right? It's a huge site. If we made it not as big, well, that would make it less of an eyesore. Can you go to the next slide? So this is design iteration 2. Both would be shown at the open house. So everything remains the same with the exception of 3rd Street. Do you see how the fence was brought in? I'm gonna stand. So the fence was normally here and it was like diagonal. So we said, hey, what if we shifted it in, made a really significant buffer here? And then this says topsoil and seeding. I don't know why we couldn't just move that there. Maybe it's because of this stormwater drain. Don't know, need to figure it out. But we said, what if we made it smaller? Could we do that? Right? And would the residents like that, right? You know, and I'm not trying to.
Why does the buffer along Allen continue to tie in?
That was my question.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know. The guy Michael who was working on this. Yeah.
Why wouldn't it?
That was how the other iteration.
Yeah, I think that's the next question, but I didn't want to ask
Yeah, yeah.
another drawing.
problem.
But I agree, why not just whoop,
Yeah.
right? Or not, why not whoop, whoop, right? Like all the way around and just demonstrate that. But what this does is it allows us to achieve all of our objectives, right? And at the same token, make this industrial site less. And Rich, I forget, but the distance from the current fence to this, do you remember, is it 40 feet?
40, 50 feet. It's
40,
the area
50
where the
feet.
containers are now.
Right, and that's because we're getting rid of the commercial containers,
Right.
they go bye-bye, right? And it's kind of dead space, so move it in, why not? So, I don't know where it will land, but we wanted to demonstrate to the public, especially in the first round, that all the work gone into this, what we've heard and everything, we can make the site smaller. And it wouldn't affect
The
scalability.
driveway entrances stay the same width?
Everything stays the same,
Right.
yeah.
What is the residency? So if I'm on Allen Street, what am I looking at?
So if you're on Allen Street and I'm looking this way, I'm seeing landscape buffer and these here and the recycling center.
I'm
So
sorry, what's that last
Trees
tree?
and
What
others.
are those trees? Is that evergreens or?
it's a placeholder right now. We have the Fairhaven natives that we would have to agree with what we wanted.
Okay.
Because what the open house is gonna be really 3 key components for public feedback, right? The fence, what the composition of the fence, are we gonna do some type of wood fence, are we gonna do brick, are we gonna do something else? What does this landscape buffer look like? What's the feedback on the landscaping, right? Besides planting native trees, which I think everybody's in agreement with, what type of trees, right? What's the maintenance, right? Are they gonna grow so tall? And I'm gonna defer to the experts on that. The third component for the feedback is the recycling center. Because everything else inside of here is really industrially used, right? There's a specific reason, specific purpose, same thing with the building.
And
So-
what's the type of enclosure? I may have missed that.
This one right here,
No, along Allen.
Where the trees are.
The enclosure.
Oh, this
can
is
be a
fence.
Fence, a wall, it could be.
yeah,
what is it?
it could be any of those things. That's one of the
Decided.
feedback we have to get. Is it fence, is it brick, is it wrought iron?
So I think residents need to see, I was just sharing with Kristen, so maybe you guys can work it out this way, but they need to see elevations.
Yes,
Okay, that'll
Yep.
show it, scale, material.
yeah, like we did with PD and Community Center. We had the building in
Yeah.
brick, we had the building in clapboard, right? Then we had the color iterations, all that.
Yeah, pretty much the Allen side more so than, but if they could do it for the all 3 sides, it's even
Yeah.
better. but-
And I'll show you some.
Anything short of a wall, they're gonna see what's inside, right? So they're gonna see through the trees.
Well, and that's
It's
the
ugly.
balance here. So what we landed at was, what this professionals have told us is you don't want to go more than a 6-foot fence. Because you have the 6-inch curb, and then there's actually gonna be like a slight berm around the perimeter. It's another 6 inches. So 6-foot fence measures at 7.
Okay.
Once you start going around 8, 9, 10, they call it the prison mentality.
Exactly.
It starts looking like a prison.
It reads as
Yeah.
something that you're trying to keep in.
Exactly. So
And it's
really,
Almost threatening.
exactly. And what it's gonna come down to a balance of, it's gonna say, all right, we need to plant this type of landscaping here. We're using this type of fence. We have to let it mature for 5, 7 years to really get that natural effect of landscape and insulation, as I call it.
And if it's beautiful,
Can
The
I
eye
ask-
stops at the beauty. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to continue.
It won't look in the background.
The two gaps on Allen are
Gaps.
where the gates are, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I know at one point we had talked about moving the gates. Are they still in the original position?
Original position.
Okay.
That's very good.
But there was, remember, right, everything we talked about is not lost. Need versus want, day one item versus day two, balancing design with cost, right? And I'm not ready to present yet on numbers, but we're working towards numbers for the total cost PD community center and DPW. So we're trying to keep that in mind. Now, the $20,000 improvement, which would give, exponential benefit, we'll have to make that decision if that example comes up, but.
So if I want to drop off some recycling stuff, I'm gonna amber through that little area there.
No, you still enter from the street. No entering into the property.
No entry into the
Go
property.
through
No.
the man door.
No, it would
With
still
your
be.
car, you could walk.
You put your car here and
Parking
this is a
lot.
little
Same
manual
as it is
door.
now.
Same as it is now. Because the thought process was, how do you, one, have enough space here? One, do you want to cut through? And for, let's say cost wasn't an issue. Do you want to add a mid-block cut through? Two, how do you get residential vehicles onto an industrial site and ensure that they're safe, right? There was just so many variables against
No,
it.
and I would not want that. That's why I'm asking. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure I understand, because,
No,
I think I mentioned that before, my pet peeve is that those gates are always closed, so that people are not looking with the gates open. And I'm just concerned that if people could come in more often, then those gates will always be open.
yeah,
Um,
these gates here are gonna be automatic open, automatic close.
Yeah.
So that issue goes away.
Sure, what was the best practice of that Romson has that you referenced earlier?
It's concrete pad where literally they just pile the cardboard
Okay.
and then they come in with a, I don't know.
The tin cloth.
Thank you. I can't remember it for life me, they cover the stuff in, yeah. Which we do the tin claw now, but we have such a tiny area to work with it because the recycling center wasn't built in this post-COVID tremendous amount of cardboard deliveries.
Right.
With the new design, there's actually an old cardboard compactor that's gonna get auctioned, I think auctioned off, because we don't use it. It just, the scale doesn't allow you to use that. So it's actually adding that concrete pad in there. It seems to work, and it's actually was referenced in Spring Lake, I think. Can't remember what other town referenced Lumsden to build their cardboard recycling area. Cool? All right.
What happens to that back area where those trees are? Because that area looks kind of abandoned to me also.
So most of it, are you talking Maple?
I'm
No,
talking
between-
behind
Hendrickson.
DPW.
To the right of the, yeah,
Hendrickson?
yeah.
Yeah,
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Sherry had nothing but phenomenal things to say about it.
really? I
Yeah,
think it looks kind of
she,
abandoned.
I'll try and be clear, right? Or concise, because we spent like 45 minutes on site. Separate from the ivy, that's gotta go. She goes, you don't want to disturb this at all. She called it the blanket. She kept referencing the blanket. So the blanket keeps everything at bay. She said you could potentially, if you wanted to, put like 2 crosswalks with like pathways with like,
A footpath.
yeah, with like, chips or something, right, to do that. She had no other recommendation beyond that. So, and I'll send out the memo. You guys will get all the documentation that's come in over the last like week.
What was her rationale? She just thought it was good for the community to.
good for the community.
Soften
Ideal
the-
buffer,
It's good
yeah.
for that parcel.
Good for that parcel land, good landscaping buffer, it's mature.
I don't want to be misunderstood. I think there's not enough of a buffer. I actually
Oh, on the
think
Henderson side.
where those trees are over here,
Oh, really?
that little wild area.
There is no
I actually
understory.
think there is no, exactly.
There's no
There is
understory.
no, I mean, you still would be seeing, I guess, whatever it is, you have there, a wall or a fence, whatever it is. I just find like there is not enough.
Yep. And we talked about
We
that.
should Maybe consider whether we could add more.
Fair. I'll bring it back to her.
Thicker.
I just don't know how to combat the deer issue,
Yeah, that's.
but yeah, I think it's a great point. We'll bring the way if we can, the goal, the really primary goal here is increase the landscaping buffer in a natural and beautiful way, where that's what your focus is and not what's behind the curtain.
I think we have a date, by the way, for a deer expert.
Yeah.
Are they coming in the
June
environmental
14th.
committee? I don't know if you wanna.
Oh, they'll get it. It's
Okay.
just, let's.
If we could just get the beauty cardboard. we'd be great.
Next slide. I know I'm spending a lot of time, but this is really, really important stuff. So I want to show you the initial draft of the,
Before we go to the building, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I just want to, because I won't be there, and I understand some of the things that are important, is those materials that you referred to. If you show if you show it in elevation, and it's clearly, there's landscaping, I don't know what the enclosure is, I assume there's gonna be multiple enclosure options for feedback for folks to respond to.
the fences.
Well, so there's lots of, I'm using the word enclosure, which is more generic, because a fence is a type of enclosure, a short wall is a type of enclosure, you know, I'm leaving it open to interpretation, because
Check.
a designer will generate alternatives for you, but it should be shown in the drawing. in
Check, check.
elevation. Okay.
Understood. So not gonna spend a lot of time on this. You'll get the drawings. It's built on the program requirements we built back in January, right? You have to have a requirement to build it. Everything's code compliant. It's built for scalability. It optimizes the current space. So I'll send this your way. Those furnitures are just placeholders. Remember, the lesson learned from Colts Neck was that the architect put in placeholders for the furniture, and then when it came down to put the furniture installed, nothing fit. So we'll get to BFI in a second, but I want to bring them in just like we did at the PD Community Center to make sure these are functional
Yeah.
designs, right? And not just some
Down to the
placeholder.
edge.
Yep. Next slide. This is the upstairs. Really optimizing the space.
Where is Rich Hyde?
He's on the first floor, same place.
Okay.
Same office. Next slide. I was just curious. I asked for a couple of these just to throw it out there. You know, there's the windows, there's the garage, the top ones are glass, the bottom ones aren't, there's some stone. They're just throwing stuff around, right? We'll have variations, but I was just curious what it would look like. Next slide. Okay, so next steps on DPW. I'm gonna hit some of the highlights just for the sake of time. The TDRC is the big one. And I'll work with Betsy on that. We're conducting on-site selective demolition, right? We're opening up walls. I'm not opening up walls, I'd love to, but Rich is opening up walls, his team's opening up walls just to make sure that the design's informed. We need to move forward the LSRB components. This would be pending governing body decision to do. I want to meet with BFI to ensure the design functionality. This is another governing body decision that we're gonna make right now. Prepare for the open house meetings. We'll work with Betsy on that. We already talked about the roof, bifurcated it. We already talked about the 2 more state contracts. Gonna skip. We talked about the trailer with the roof. And then the phasing. So really all that's left, we'll get to BFI, but just know that I want to meet with them and start the process. We'll talk about the PD Community Center. Is we wanted to add, and this was sent out, I think Friday, is the LSRP cost to move forward on that, because we have to do the investigative work on the new tank. And then we want to close out the DP and then obviously all the abatement and monitoring.
Is that on the consent agenda?
It would need to be added. You sent it out the other day.
Is the number, did I see 57,000?
57,500.
75.
57,500.
Oh, 57,500. Okay, I did read it.
Yes.
So I'm there, that's
around the tanks
Which ones?
at the
The
DPW.
new tank?
Yeah,
Negative. This is a little bit of a curveball.
so we don't know.
They gotta come with the geotechnical gear, they
Right.
gotta spend a couple days on site, Rich, right? You know, they tried finding documents, they can't
Yeah.
yeah,
Unlike the police department, which we know is,
100% ready to go,
yes.
taken out, yep. Okay, all right, so that's DPW. Almost done, guys, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, next slide. All right, this is where I take my foot off the gas. We're at an inflection point. It's not a problem. It depends on how valuable 4 to 6 weeks is to you. Whether or not we're gonna pre-qualify bidders. So normally, right, you go out to bid and we have to take the lowest bid, right? That's state law. I'm gonna abbreviate the email that you guys got. There is a process where majority of the lead time is getting approval from the entity that approves this, it's 30 days, up to 30 days. That we can go through to define the bidding requirements.
so that we don't end up with a contractor who maybe isn't financially solvent. Or we don't end up with a contract who maybe doesn't have the experience with these types of jobs. My turning point for me on this and whether or not we want to do it was when I asked Eli and Rick, how many projects have you been on where contractors, gone sideways? And they laughed at me. And they said it happens more than you think. Our owner's rep, Scott and Greg Ferguson, I mean, they're a huge proponent of it, but I said, how many times, private sector is very different, but how many times does this happen? And it happens. So we're at an inflection point. I think for DPW to no brainer, we start the pre-qualification process because we have time on our side with that. So we still target, and we'll get to PD and community center in a second, we're still targeting authorizing to bid. That doesn't mean we go out to bid, but we would authorize to go out to bid on 22 May as we've been tracking all along. And then once the entity is called DLGS, barring everybody's on board with this, once the DLGS approves it, then we fire it out.
Well, there's a process leading up to that.
Exactly, and that's the middle here. So the 4 components that we have to do, and we'll be able to, work through this, but it is time, is we have to define what the pre-qualification requirements are. Luckily, Colts Neck went through this, so we have a template to start with. And Eli went through this with with Colts Neck, right? So this is not the first time we're doing this, right? We're copying innovation here, right? Our innovation premium is very small. We got to notice the public. We have to have a public hearing, and then we have to adopt a resolution ultimately. All of that has to get done prior to go to DLGS. So that's why this enters probably adding 4 to 6 weeks from what our original schedule was. Our original schedule was authorized to bid 22 May. Fabiano requested 2 weeks. Let's give him the 2 weeks. It takes 2 weeks for him to do his review, bless it, and then we go. So now we're in the second week of June. Adding this potentially adds 4 weeks.
Maybe 8.
Could be upwards of 8. We're going to
Are we gonna have shovel on the ground in the fall still, or pushes us to winter?
No. I mean, we were hoping to break ground. I'd have to look at my PD community center schedule. Maybe it's end of September, beginning of October.
Including those 8 weeks?
Here's why I have pause, right? We've done a phenomenal job up until this point. We have turned over every single rock. We getting the owners up in, we've done everything right.
Right.
All of it will be for naught if we get a dud as a contractor. And if there's anything that we can do to ensure our $6.5–7 million investment, that's the estimate. I'm not saying what the final cost is. And we can do that, and it adds 4 to 6 weeks. If it was 6 months, I would be saying probably not.
Does that cost something, or is that all right?
We could.
And so.
It costs time, it
I
costs
get it.
reprioritization,
I
but
get it.
there's not like a $50,000 application fee, right?
And could you give me what the acronym, what is DLGS stand?
Division of Local Government Services.
Okay,
Yeah, she's good.
I think it's sound practice.
It's
I also
more
think
a
it's-
danger of not doing it than doing it.
And it's a complicated project, it
Yeah.
has to be done in phases, you got the 2 buildings on a small site, you're demoing the project. You're gonna need a contractor that has some
And
expertise. here.
contractor.
And
that's
you have
the
to
whole-
do it.
I didn't want to make the decision on my own, right? We were all in agreement, but I didn't want to come here
Okay.
predicated, right? I want to make sure it was our decision, number one. Number two, we've come this far, and if we can add this extra step in, we will move mountains. Our schedule does not change. We're still going to target authorizing a bid on 22 May. We're going to get the 70-page documents to you guys prior, be able to look at it, show nothing's changed, right? The finished boards will be coming once the contractor's selected, like none of our stuff changes.
Drew let us down.
Don't even start. Get out of here. All right. Moving forward, next slide, next decision point, I need some help with.
okay, here in the community center.
We're in the community center. I need to know what the governing body's preference is for the light.
Yeah, geez.
I'm sorry.
60 watt, 3,000.
I don't want any amber lights.
What does that mean exactly?
This is
What does that mean?
the fixture style.
Josh, no.
What does that mean?
and
Modern.
Drew, what happened, this is part of that skin on the inside we talked about, because it goes with all the other decisions. It's part of the finish board.
Right, but they have to put a
That's
placeholder in
the
the
option?
bid.
Those are the 2 options?
That's the 2 options that make the
Do they
move.
cost the same? Are they both LEDs?
look the same.
No, one's like a round,
It's an
modern-
LED too.
The rose.
Their
Positions is the
This
same.
has to be done by the designer.
what's that made out of?
I have no, I have none of that information, right? All I'm saying aesthetically, right? We need to put a placeholder in the bid.
That looks cool in the
One
red,
looks
but I'm
like a
worried about if
halo.
it's fragile.
I just need to put, I felt very uncomfortable making this
Oh my
decision
God,
about what's
just
gotta go
make
in the
a
bid.
decision.
Okay,
I like the left.
which one?
The circles.
On the left or the right?
Right.
So the Martian, so do you like the one on the left?
I don't like either.
Okay. You want me to ask for?
The ones on the right are very modern. I've
They
done
are,
them for other
But are
projects.
they fragile?
Yeah, I mean, if you're.
Like if someone throws a ball up,
Yeah,
is it gonna break?
yeah.
That was my concern. I like the look better. What's that?
But it's a little wide.
Something from the 70s, doesn't it?
There's.
You think the one on the right makes it look older?
Are not the right thing.
I know, I agree. I think I like the one on the right.
Be part of the conversation, Ava, but a designer, has the designer seen the program of activities that are happening in there? Because we're not sitting for lectures.
Believe me, I'm just worried it's gonna-
I'll go back for
That
other
was my-
alternatives and see if we can put a placeholder in the bid
Looks fragile.
documents that gives us the flexibility to
They should,
look at it.
they should probably
But
have
I'm
a
sorry,
combination,
they
wait,
should
Drew,
have
they need to be
placeholders
a
for what?
combination of lights and maybe something
It's
on the
posted,
corners,
don't
or
you think?
even. a
Check
bead
are
of
gonna
light.
get in there.
But
and-
they need a placeholder for knowing
A cage around.
how much weight to put here or
Terrible.
where he goes or.
They wanted
The ultimate lights
a,
again?
well, they wanted the placeholder for, we want this light fixture or similar. That's what goes into the document.
You can do
And-
pictures you don't even see, which is probably the right thing, they need to disappear
I'll
and kind of
go
just.
back and talk about that.
Yeah, like it's an
But they'd be
outside.
open ramp. Can you
Correct.
Still do it?
Yeah, of course, it's a good place to hide them, they tuck away, so.
I'll
that-
go back, I'll ask for other alternatives, see if they can disappear and see if there's flexibility in such a way.
Those are best.
Those are swords.
Okay. I'm glad I asked. All right, keep it along. Next slide is 10:19. Can you zoom back out to 100? Thank you. All right, so let's go through updates. I'm gonna, owners reps fully engaged, things are going great. If you have questions, let me know. BidNet, this is on the agenda tonight. It's a free solution for us to go out to bid. The bidders themselves pay to be part of the service. It is another layer to ensure that,
There's a white.
thank you. Appropriations update. The initial assessment, if you remember last time, there were two pieces. One, can we go out to bid? Right? And two, did we get the money? We don't know if we're in the money yet. I'm hoping by the next governing body meeting, I'll have a better update for you. Things are still trending the way they've been trending. What we did get is that initial assessment shows us, and this is from Bloom's office, that we can move forward with construction work covered by contracts that predate the date of enactment.
Oh, wow.
So that's huge,
That's huge,
right? So basically what that means is
we don't have to wait.
so it won't be final till it's final. I've gotten as much verbal as I can until I have it in writing on a written document. I'm not taking it to the bank. I'm not saying we have it or anything. But things are trending in the direction that we need them to. So no curveball yet.
That's great.
Seal's gonna skip technology. Okay, BFI. So what's on the docket tonight on the resolution is for us to work with BFI. BFI, Colts Neck used them. Their biggest regret was not having them on earlier, hence why we did what we did. They worked with Eli, made sure that the furniture functionality, all of that matched. So if the governing body decides tonight to approve, we bring them on, we have our kickoff call, the requirements get finalized. They bring in samples of chairs if you want to, like it just unleashes everything else. And then what I also want to do in that same kickoff right after, have them repeat the process with DPW. They work directly with the state contract vendors. Chair costs a chair. They're like a table costs a table. Now, if you want the top of the line table, okay, it's going to cost you X dollars. You want the middle of the line, it's going to cost you Y. And I think we provide that feedback to BFI, but we need to start somewhere. So what you have is draft proposal, draft everything. Barring the blessing tonight, the resolution, we officially kick off with them and we get going down that path.
Quick discussion on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so when this was originally conceived, what did we allocate in our estimate for the furniture piece in the initial budget? Was it this number?
Like way back when?
Well,
Are you
I'm
talking-
wondering if we're like, have we overshot it a lot? Because I did review the contract. It's a hefty number, but it's also the right time to bring them on. I fully support the
Yeah.
process. But was that the number we were looking at initially?
I don't recall what our previous furniture
Yeah,
number
it's-
was.
It's a big number, but
Our financial though, we were looking at the square footage.
Yeah.
We weren't looking at
there
the
was a
bones.
line, there was a line for furniture.
I want to say it was 200.
It might have been.
If memory serves, I can look back once I'm done.
Do not go back, it's okay.
I think it was 200. Did it include the community center?
Fair
Because at the
point.
time that wasn't there.
You talking about the owner's rep at the time when he did the,
No, I believe it
No,
was an Eli.
you're right. There was a furniture. I want to say it was 200, but this is pre-community center.
Yeah,
And the community center has the station cards where the chairs and tables all
I
fit
mean,
in
we
storage.
don't really have anything to compare it to.
We don't.
Is it something we should get quotes on?
I mean, it's state contract pricing. So X chairs plus Y tables equals Z cost. So I don't know, that's why we have to finalize the program, right? How many chairs, how many tables, how many filing cabinets, what's the grade?
But there's fees for their services.
No, negative. There's no fees for their service.
Well, the fee is not paid directly by the borough, whatever arrangement they have to sign with the state contractors between them and state contractors.
Oh, it's the way the designer does it too. Yeah, okay. So we're still paying there, okay.
It's coming out of somewhere.
Oh, yeah, we're paying.
Potentially, yeah.
Well,
But if you went to that same state contractor to.
it's probably less than if you went to,
Restoration hardware.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What I like about them is they are interior designers.
Is it for furniture for PD, community center and DPW?
No,
Okay, so this is only
PD and community center. We didn't do any programming for DPW
Well,
as far as like
Yeah.
furniture goes.
yeah.
It's gonna be a lot less,
DPW is so much less complex than PD and community center is extremely complex. Animal. It was.
should we renovate? You want-
Okay. I'm gonna skip over noise ordinance, American Water, initial agreement that they're gonna upgrade the main January, February 24, with 2 meetings this Thursday at 1100 to cross the T's, dot the I's with that, some more to come. Our drawings are officially with DOC.
Mhm.
No? Okay. Cost estimate, this was significant resident feedback, significant. When the substantially complete drawings come to you guys, Fabiano, all before the 22 May meeting, where we're gonna target authorizing for bid. Doesn't mean we're gonna go out to bid, it just means we're gonna have our blessing that when they're ready, they go. They're also gonna send out the updated drawings to the cost estimator to get an updated cost that goes with the new drawings. This is standard practice. And I think it's out, not a thing, I'm pretty sure it's outlined in the AIA documents we signed, but I wanted to call that out specifically. The LSRP here, so the asbestos is being removed. I think there's 15 components. There's some additional work that has to be done there. That's on its progress. Bond and finance, if you guys remember, we did that initial funding that we talked about, right? So we have some additional money. So this is what I want to highlight, right? This is why when we talk about costs, I'm not ready to tell final numbers yet. Not, need a little bit more time to do it. For every $1 million that we don't spend, it's $445,000 in interest that we save over the life of the loan. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind. So you save $1 million and you save the 445. This round of funding puts it at a 19-year loan. That was the average useful life of what was included. And it changes, right? The interest rate changes. I'm giving you dollars as of today, but just to kind of give you a thought process, right? So $2 million, $990,000, right? Next slide. Gonna go over some important ones. I need a decision point from the governing body. And how many plaques, dedication plaques, I got asked. Do we want one in PD and one in community center? It's like this building was erected and this was the mayor and the council. How many do we want? And do we want a cornerstone? Basically, it says the year the building was erected.
You talking about the memorial or you talking?
No, I thought the same thing today.
What
No.
do you mean?
You make a dedicated plaque, right? You ever go to governing body
Oh,
meeting?
with the
There's one
year
right
it was
upstairs. Who built it? The architect. This is standard practice. Do we want one or two?
One.
It's Fairhaven, let's keep it simple. I don't know if we have to put the architect's name on it.
We don't have to do it.
Cornerstone's great. I think putting the year on the.
I love the cornerstone idea.
I don't think we need any, we've I don't think we need credit.
I'm
I
happy
think
with
that's
just
Just a cornerstone.
Yeah.
And
Just
a,
a-
and a date or something, like that's.
It'll be
that's a
2023, the date the building was erected.
Yeah.
Are we all in agreement with that?
Yes, move next.
Cool. Again, I'm not taking anything for granted, guys. Don't shoot the messenger, please.
Except what, for visitors.
I'm gonna keep moving along. We're not ready to do that. Oh, big important, bicentennial hall, because it's gonna require coordination with the historic commission. If everybody recalls, we talked about taking the generator at PD and moving to bicentennial hall.
Yeah.
We're going back to the original professional to install that. He's gonna be on site, I don't know when, soon. Yeah, this week. And he's gonna give us a quote to basically cap off the current generator, move it to bicentennial hall and set it up. So we'll get that, but we have to coordinate with historic commission.
Well, I could, or Chris and I can do that with, Matt and Art.
You tell me, I want to make sure that, yeah, I want to take that lead, go fine. And then 22 May, so we're gonna still look separate from pre-qualification, we'll start targeting going out to bid, starting that clock. Because if something comes up, we want to prep for it. I'm not gonna give you guys the complete set of drawings, it's 1,100 pages long. So separate from a cost perspective, we'll have complete digital. What we will do is we're gonna get.
I'm one of the draw.
We're gonna get one copy of
I
this.
read everything.
We're gonna get one copy of the CDs. It's 70 pages, full size. So I'm gonna ask that we have them immediately. You guys want the digital copies immediately, but
You love me.
are you guys okay with that? I'm not gonna ask them to print the thousands of construction
No,
specs.
yes. And we'll keep them here, you can view them.
Okay, next slide, almost done, it's a marathon. Okay, 2 more slides. So here's the next steps. Again, I'm gonna say it again, separate from pre-qualification and starting that process, we're still going towards the 22 May, authorized to go out to bid. We'll get the updated cost estimates, it's gonna take 2 weeks from when we get the substantial complete drawings. We are going to create a website link, not newsflash, a website link with all the supporting documentation. So I'm gonna work with Tracy, I'm gonna work with Kristen on that, I'm gonna work with Teresa, Betty Ann, and everything will have a one-stop shop online where folks can go and not have to funnel through. Finished boards, we talked about, that won't come until we have the selection of the contractor. Stormwater management will all be finalized by the substantially complete. Working with chief on the radio equipment. I want to take a minute for here because this is really important, because if anybody's asked, you have to be educated on it. We are ensuring everything. We're having plans A's, B, C, D, that the radio equipment will not be impacted at all throughout this, right? So the walkie-talkies that the guys use, right, and if they have to go to dispatch or whatever, this is requiring a significant amount of coordination, significant, because we can't just run a power line to the antenna because the current building's there. So I just want to highlight this to you. I'm going to go over a couple, working really closely with Chief, who's crushing it with the radio guy on this, but this is probably one of the most significant items right now out of everything we're dealing with. Yeah.
Is the idea still to keep the tower exactly where it is?
Yes, that's not changing.
At the end of the day?
Not only very expensive, but I think once you start moving that, people start questioning.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, we're gonna make it work. It's just there's a lot of other options how to keep that antenna working while the building's still there and our other buildings are over here. So there's a lot of thoughts out there, but you know, we're working with radio guy. We'll make it work.
This is a big one, and then the project sequence is going to come a big one.
Right,
Because
this is
there
probably
will-
one of the biggest things I'm like, how are we gonna make this work?
Yeah.
During that time.
And there will come a period of time too, where the new community center, you won't be able to use because of the demolition ongoing. We don't want people going in the community center while you have a crane smashing the building down. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Once with the project sequence, the owners reps right now are going back and forth. This is gonna require a lot of discussion, not only from a communication perspective. I know the asbestos removal for you was huge from day one with that. So the antenna project sequencing is gonna get a little bit more involved. I'll get more options on that. We're asking for an acoustics report for the community center. A similar glass partition and wall partition was done at Chesterfield. Teresa reached out to her counterpart there. We just want to gut check. Hey, how's it going? Is it noisy? Is it not noisy? What does it sound like? Just before we, do what we're doing. Fish Chapel, we're gonna get the parking agreement. I know Greg was supposed to get it to me. Working on that in the landmark design. We're gonna submit our applications, logistical plan, and I hit American Water, and I hit BFI, I hit DOC sign off, the site survey. Don't worry about that. Let's skip that, appropriations. Phase two, I talked about this before, no decision point right now, but we know when we do DPW, people are gonna provide comments. Our thought process is centralize that comment, see what people are saying, and see if the government wants to prioritize that as an effort. Not a decision point for now, probably, I'm gonna say June, if we wanna make that decision point that early. The other thing too, that Chief and I are gonna be doing, and Mayor, I don't know if you wanna join us with it. We wanna go knock on the two doors, the one next to the police department and one next to the church, to let them know, hey, your fences are encroaching, they're gonna be moved, we're gonna replace them for you. And this is gonna go on. But I think that face to face, I think we're at that point, because now we know officially what's what. So if you wanna join, me, you and Chief can coordinate that and go knock on their doors. Next slide. Cool. So same schedule, on target, right? Can you believe that we started 03 February? One thing I spoke to the owners reps about is really honing in on these overall costs here. Because, you know, the building may cost X, but all these other things add components to it, right? To get a true cost of what's going on. So more to come on that. And here's our schedule. So we already, this has not changed already from day one, September, October. So with the pre-qual, I'm leaning more towards shoveling the ground in October. But I think it's well worth it. I really think it's well worth it.
Thank you, Joe.
Amazing.
Any questions? Okay, no. Everybody good with the?
What was the scope? Because I know it did go up, but I can't remember which document I saw it. Can you just unpack that a little bit?
For the LSRP for DPW?
I thought it had to do, sorry.
That was the only thing where there was a scope change,
No,
because the underground
wasn't
storage
it-
tie-in.
Wasn't it the architect's contract for DPW?
Architect, the contract for DPW did not change.
Okay,
If anything, it's gonna be less because we pulled out the LSRP costs out of it.
okay.
Originally, he planned for all of these different, we asked him to, right? Because when we did TGP, we were surprised by all these other fees that came in. So when we sat down with Grammar, we said, okay, well, what if it's geotechnical? Well, I don't expect that. Okay, well, plan for it. If we don't use it, we don't
Yeah.
use it. So LSRP was one of those line items. He got a number from Colliers, and then once the scope expanded, once we found that tank and wanted to take care of that, then we pulled it out. So
Okay, the scope didn't expand, it shifted.
that's a better way to say
Oh,
it. Yeah,
gotcha.
that's actually probably a better way to call it.
Okay, and then, but there is, okay, so the fee, sorry, just, it's late. I'm late.
No, this is important
Is
stuff.
the architect's contract for DPW, is that 400? Where did I see that? What is the fee?
Contractor. Oh, you mean, one of the resolutions on tonight
Yeah,
is Ron Grammer's contract,
yeah,
and you're asking what the total cost is.
yeah.
I
I
know.
meant to write it down. So I didn't.
202,000.
Is that it?
I think it's in the resolutions.
It's somewhere, I just gotta find it, hang on.
202,000.
202.
That's a guess.
I think it's.
Owner's rep is 225.
And the owner's rep fee, that was the number we were.
Yes,
dealing with, yeah.
18 months, 12/5 times 18 months.
Yeah.
It's 224 and change, yeah, exactly.
I have not fixed, I have not fixed 200,000 for that.
Perfect.
And
This by $2,000.
Not-
It is 200, not to exceed 200.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was close. I was close.
So yeah, but they're both, that's what, we're in the ballpark. where it's-
Locked, yeah,
it's
and
9%.
DPW should already be less because it's not to exceed 200, and we already
Yeah.
shifted the LSRP out of there, so
Yeah,
it
it's
shouldn't
gonna
be.
be under.
But we did that because I did not want us to be surprised by, oh, hey, by the way, you need professional X because this came up. Well,
Yeah.
if that was a possibility, I wanted to know that upfront, not
Exactly.
after the fact, which is benefiting us now, because now it's like, great, we planned for it. And so. Other questions, comments? We good?
Great job.
Great job.
All right.
Told you, I'm most excited about it. This was a fun one.
We're going to move forward to new business council committee reports. I asked each council person if they could try to keep each individual committee to less than 1 minute if possible, please. We'll start with Councilwoman Neff on finance.
Keep it short, our finance committee has met, and our key focus right now is understanding how much money we need to be raising And whether it's temporary funds, whether we do permanent financing and when, and to what degree we borrow and when, as we know more about our timeline and how much money we need to get the project started and continue all of the projects. I don't know if there's anything much to do, much more to say other than we'll share this information in greater detail with council.
Thank
in
you.
Coming weeks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Moving along, personnel, followed by Parks and Rec, Councilwoman Hoey.
Sure. Nothing new in personnel other than the appointment we had earlier today. Rec, we met last week, lots of conversation around the dances that we had. We started to think about what the right format should be going forward. Next meeting on the 7th.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hoey. Planning Board, Councilwoman Koch.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next planning board meeting is on May 16th. And as we just discussed, we're going to have the technical design and review committee meeting on the 7th. 6th, Tuesday night. It's a Tuesday. Okay. Beautification committee continues to meet. We've identified a couple of very low impact areas, which won't cost very much money. So we're going to go with that as some of our initial projects. The big one is Fairhaven Day. Our website is open to residents. They can go on and order family packages right now. Other sales will become available, t-shirts, hats, that kind of thing later in the week. Most important is at the end of the week, residents will be able to sign up to volunteer for Fairhaven Day. Fairhaven Day cannot exist without the help of our volunteers, and we need as many people as possible. We have lots of different timelines. You can do it early in the morning, later in the day, afternoon, night. You can help with kids. You can help with the tents. We're having lots of opportunities for volunteers, and we definitely need it. And that site will be open at the end of the week. And Betty Ann will be posting both to the Fairhaven website as well as other social media so that you can connect to that link. And that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Koch. Police, Fire, Office of Emergency Management, Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you. I just want to commend Councilman Borough for advancing the PD as far as we have so far. So we're getting close. And it's very encouraging. Couple numbers on fire. Didn't have these handy last meeting in April, but the March numbers, there were 12 responses in March for 159 hours. In April, we had 17 responses for 151 hours. There was a burning home drill that was done at the academy in Middletown, and a number of our fire volunteers were participants of that. So lots of activities with the fire department.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. Moving along, Engineering and DPW and Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be quick, Mayor. No update on zoning board. Next meeting in June, I'll come prepare 22 May on that. Cambridge Avenue, just want to hit that real quick. We'll be meeting with the residents and almost like a town hall type style with them, just let them know the changes coming to Cambridge, more to come. Leaf and Brush, next meeting, 18 May. We'll have yours truly, Rich, coming to join that over the brief the next meeting. And then Engineering DPW, we kind of hit some of the key items. 3rd Street Phase 2, we're scheduling a pre-construction meeting on that, so that's coming down the pipe. And then going to be coming out with a Gantt chart, which I'm really excited. Everybody knows what Gantt chart is, right? And that's like the projects, what's going on, just to wrap this up. There's a lot going on there, and you know, it's all important work, all has to get done. We just want to make sure we're tracking accordingly. So that's it for me.
Thank you. We're going to move along to Borough Communications and Community Outreach. Councilman Cole.
Thank you, Mayor. Outreach and Communications meets next on May 25th. We continue to, I'll back up and just say, proper communications for our construction has been a priority. It will remain a priority. Hanson Cookie was our pilot to really perfect our procedures to both streamline, clarify, and deliver timely communications. I would say this, that Hanson Cookie project is a 3-phase project. Our first phase was a little late on the delivery, a little confusing. Our second phase was communicated rather late, perhaps with good reason, but not as timely as I think we would like to be, or at least we intend to be. And so we'll have another shot at it. Phase 3 will be mill pave, so we'll have another shot. And all of this is an effort to really get all our communication procedure in place so that when we're ready to queue up facilities and when we're ready to queue up micro projects and when we've got it to really a fine-tuned machine. One which serves the residents. So stay tuned. Let's see. The facilities landing page or link that Drew talked about will be a priority. It'll be on the next agenda. Betty and Drew are really already working on it. The Environmental Commission is meeting this week. As you recall, deer management was an assignment given to them by this body. As you mentioned, there is a call coming up mid-June on the 14th with Jody from NJDEP, who is actually runs this division of deer management. I'll probably get titles and all sorts of information that I don't have now. It's still stunning to me that there is even standards in the division that can help with this. I'm excited to explore the resource, and I'll bring that back to the council after our meeting. They, at their last meeting, reviewed pocket parks, including the not boat ramp at Batten, and we all have that. The green team had a very successful Love Where You Live Day just this past Sunday. It was beautiful, and I know many of you were there. The weather was perfect. It was probably twice the size that it was the year before.
Great event.
It was just darling. It was just a really sweet day in Fairhaven. I was asked to carry a special note of thanks. 6 members of the green team attended the Sustainable Jersey Summit. And they're grateful for the application fee, the registration fee being covered for them to attend. The Shade Tree Commission met last week. I'm happy to report this body there. We are going to be getting 2 drafts of a tree preservation ordinance. Yeah. We are going to be getting 2 drafts of 2 different drafts. We do have to think about this carefully. Once we get the drafts, I'll be able to summarize the components, help you break it down and understand it, so we can talk in terms of pluses and minuses. But it's on the move, and we'll have something for consideration. The Shade Tree Commission has also requested a soil sample at Memorial Park where the Christmas tree is located. It seems that there's some ongoing discussion in several pockets of Fairhaven, and the concern from the Shade Tree Commission is to first investigate the soil. I wanted to make you aware of that because I think other people are thinking about the Christmas tree, so that's what the Shade Tree Commission wants to do. They'll share the information about the quality of the soil in case that's impacting.
I think we have that done.
Well, maybe we could share it with the Shade Tree Commission so that they know.
What's the goal, to plant a Christmas tree?
They want to
You know-
replace the current one, right?
You want to replace the Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
It's not even close.
Plan to get
It's
in the
less
same
than a
place.
Oh, to keep dying?
Yes.
Move it someplace else.
Got it.
It's such a compelling topic. Every time it even gets touched on, everyone weighs in. So I'm just mentioning because it's in
Yeah, no, I
there.
appreciate that.
So maybe it needs a new location, maybe the soil needs remediation, maybe we need a new tree, maybe it's a different tree. I don't have the answers, but the Shade Tree Commission does understand that people want it to be better. The Shade Tree Commission importantly is launching a resident tree buying program. And I wanted to mention this because it's a really great thing where local area nurseries, regional, when after the end of the big sale season, there's usually an inventory of trees, and so they're willing to kind of bundle tree sales, and they do this. They make a resident tree buying program really easy, where if you pay a fee and sign up, the company comes, plants your tree for you, and you start watering, and you've got a tree. It's as easy as it gets. So we all know that we want to plant more trees, so this is an easy way to do that. More information will be coming. In fact, if you want more information, Christy can provide it now, but look for more next meeting. Do we have status on the basement, the CDBG office ones, CDBG office ones? Does that office have everything they need for the ADA work?
We already got prepared for it.
Terrific. So all the wheels are in motion there. The business district. I'd like to, with the consent of the governing body, I'd like to, Betsy and I, to have an exploratory meeting with our planners to look for tools and resources that can help us sort of leverage and preserve our small town charming business district. There are tools and resources out there. We'd like to have the opportunity to sit, have an exploratory meeting with the planner who could walk us through what some of those are, bring that information back to this body, and talk about next steps.
Would that include like the cost to actually do it too?
Totally.
Okay.
You gonna give us a proposal?
No, not yet. I mean, it's really at this point, we're just saying we need to sit down and look through all the various things. It's very preliminary.
Is she charging us for the sit down?
A few $100.
I'll have to issue a PO. I'll have to have some idea.
It's $2.50 an hour.
Yeah, it'll cost, it's really why I'm bringing it here. I think it'd be well worth it. I know that there's some resources out there. I also know that there's a long lead time associated with this stuff, but it's my wheelhouse. I'd like to come and make that contribution. If you're comfortable.
Can't see it being an initial 4 to 6 hours all in.
Oh,
Between like the
no.
hour meeting and whatever research you might put together.
Stop talking about them.
Right now, we're just talking about an initial meeting.
So not to task them to do anything, just to receive
Yeah,
information.
Yeah,
Just
it's one meeting,
It's a layup.
I'll come back with a summary and
Yep.
then we can talk about it.
Good.
I'm good with it.
Okay. That's it. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilman Cole. Moving on to consent agenda. What are we at, Allison? We're adding 2023-140.
And 141.
Colliers, Puckett.
Which one's which?
Colliers, Puckett
Can
Park.
we vote on that separately, please?
Yes, we will. I'm gonna get to what to separate in a second, but 140 is what?
Puckett Park.
For the 12.5.
Or
12.5. 141 would be the LSRP design at 57.5.
For DPWS.
okay, does everyone got that?
Got it.
Check, check.
So we're talking 2023-122 to 2023-141. You're asking to separate Councilman Cole 140, correct?
What is 141 again?
LSRP.
Oh, yes,
DPWS.
57.5. Yes, I am there.
Okay, is anyone else, before I ask if anyone has any questions about those resolutions, does anyone else want to separate any other resolutions? No, does anyone have any questions, not on 140 yet, but on 122 through 141, excluding 140? Does anyone have any questions on those?
Councilman Paul, are you calling 140 and 141?
No, just 140, we're gonna vote on separately.
I thought she asked that.
She got the answer on 141, she's good on that, yeah.
Just for the record, BidNet is a zero fee thing.
Correct.
Yes.
To the borough.
Any other questions on those? Anyone have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda for items 2023-122 to 2023-141, with the exception of 2023-140.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Cole,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Neff,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. On 2023-140, does anyone want to have any discussion?
No.
I asked for it to be separated because I can't, we have to live with the decision. And I think it will be, I don't think that it's an improvement. I think it's a detriment and we're going to regret doing it. That's my.
Anyone else have any comments on it? No? Does anyone have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmembers Cole,
No.
Tony,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Neff,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. Department reports, April 2023, dog license, municipal clerk. Motion to accept as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we were at the good of the borough portion of our meeting. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Yes, Marty, come on up. Please try to observe a time limit of 3 minutes.
Road, and since I live on Hans Road, I guess I'm part of the success story that you mentioned before. A couple of comments, and I'm giving them in the spirit of saying that I hope that the comments I'm going to give will help make the next success story more successful. And that's really. So a couple of things. First of all, I do have to say that I concur that the late notice that was stuck in mailboxes on Friday afternoon was after Borough Hall had closed. So I know that neighbors had questions. And one of those questions has not yet been answered, so I'm hoping that we can get an answer tonight, which is, does this phase of the curbing project include milling and paving, or is that
No.
at a separate time?
Separate time.
Okay, good, because everybody wondered, it just said concrete work, so we weren't sure. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was we were all anticipating replacement of existing curbs. So much to our surprise, you know, some of my neighbors had their lawns dug up and they're pouring concrete. And we were trying to figure out why that was.
So if you go back to the special meeting we had in 2021, which I think was in October, and I think it was October 18th, and I only know that because it was soon after I became mayor. That would be a weird memory, but I'm almost positive you watched the audio video, someone asked that question, and I said it's to replace existing curbs, and then in certain sections on that road where we were gonna have drainage, or we had drainage already, we were gonna put an additional curb on 10 feet each side of that drainage.
Okay, so just to let you know that the residents down near me, we all missed that comment, including myself, so I might have heard it, but there was, you know. quite a lot.
I'll even go back, I'll watch the video tomorrow.
Right.
You can, and if you want to email me, I'll find the spot where that is.
So I would just say, because there were a number of neighbors, including myself, who didn't realize that or know that, for the future, and I don't know if it's possible, but if Rich or somebody, maybe Fernandez or whoever the construction company is, can notify residents, because
The plans are, I believe, online. They're on our borough website. And I would also say, and I'm just gonna bring this up for the conversation piece. A week and a half ago was a tough day with the flooding in the town. And a huge component of that was Hants Road. A huge component. So there's a lot of your neighbors that came pretty aggressive at me that they didn't have curbs.
well,
And
don't
that,
get it our end, so we didn't have it. So, you know, not that we weren't worried about
Sure.
it, but we were fine.
So there's no one size fits all solution here for pleasing everyone in a town, on the street, you know, even with the next door neighbor. I really do believe this was a success story the other day, and I appreciate, you know, the fact that you somewhat disagree, I could tell. But just living what went on 10 days ago with that storm, or however many days ago it was, and what led up to those decision points, and the frustrations of some residents, and the way that we had that special meeting and we explained every single component of the project. I mean, I really do feel like, as a governing body, were we perfect? No, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you we're perfect, but I think we did a pretty good job, you know, under the circumstances.
If I can just add, none of the neighbors down where I am had that sense of urgency explained. Had that been in the notification, that would have been a big help.
Yeah. Marty, also, part of the reason we had a tight timeline, not to share too much, but an employee that's responsible for usually doing that was not in that day. We literally got this opportunity on a Friday morning and turned it around that quickly. So, you know, and Councilwoman Cole, I mean, she tried to spruce that thing up. We just kind of, we ran out of time. We ran out of time, but that being said, I mean, I drove by on River Road, and I looked down to my right on Hants Road, there's a giant sign saying that the work's gonna begin. I mean, giant. You drive on Hants Road, you can't miss that sign. You know, I understand that. I guess I would ask, and the one question I'm thinking back to my conversation with Sarah is, if you had gotten a notice, you know, let's say a week earlier, is that the big component of what you're talking about that would change? Is you could ask whether they were milling pin, like what would have changed from the circumstances of your daily?
Yeah, communication, because there were a lot of questions and neighbors were turning to other neighbors.
To get the
Nobody had any
information.
answers.
Right.
You know, so, you know, it wasn't mutiny on the bounty, it was just like communication.
Sure.
And it would have helped if we would have known a little bit more, helped if people would have known about the sense of urgency, that that's why it happened, when it happened, the way it happened.
I'm just surprised no one emailed me. That's the only thing I would say is I get a lot of emails when things don't go the right way. I could have easily, even with Borough Hall closed, I would be happy to, you know, provide the information to anyone that asked the question at any single time, just like that, very easily. So if that happens in the future, if you ever have an issue, tell your neighbors too, please email me. We hear you, you know, we want to improve the communication as well. On this one instance, we just didn't have the timeline to do it the way that you're talking about.
Right. And the curbing, the rest of, I don't know if that's what you call it, if it's the same thing, it's also a big surprise, so.
That part of it, those plans have been up. We mentioned it in the public forum, nothing in there. We've been very upfront with what we were doing on Hants Road the whole way.
Well, I'm gonna think about this because I think hopefully there'll be a better way to communicate that, since so many of my surrounding neighbors and myself didn't realize
I
it.
think
So,
I put the link in the letter. This is one of the things I hope to do, because then they can drop it in the search bar. I don't pull up the plan. It's one of the things. we
I
can do.
wonder if so much of this could be solved by just encouraging people to participate in these meetings. I feel like there's a lot of one-off customization that we're doing for individuals, which I understand, but I feel like at the end of the day, the only real communication is the agenda, what we talk about, and this open forum.
No, that's not the only communication.
But when we're acting on something, right? So if we have an agenda and we're acting on something, at that point, it's public information. So if we started these conversations 4 years ago, the public's been invited. All I'm saying is that we need to think about changing the mindset. I'm getting text messages from neighbors on chickens, like, you know, like the mindset should be, come to the meeting, we want to participate, we want to be a part of it from the beginning, not after the fact.
They don't even know about it.
Is there,
Like, you're right.
all good points. I think we should talk about that more, community outreach as well. Anyone else in the public with go to the borough? Allison? No, Allison?
Nope.
Uh,
Mayor, yes, I have two things I'd like to mention. One is the Garden Club of Fairhaven did a presentation, their community outreach at the community center. They did a series of stations, 4 stations in particularly focusing on native non-invasive plants, organic gardening, as well as options for organic pest control. It was open to our residents, it was free of charge, and it was extremely informative. The other thing I'd like to mention is the last time we had brush pickup, leaf and brush pickup, within, I would say 5 days, there were at least 4 homes that put their brush and leaf out. It was prior to the big storm. That big storm came, washed all that debris into our catch basins, which goes out into the Navasink River. So I really strongly encourage our neighbors not to depend on what their neighbors are doing, but to check the borough website, make sure they're signed up for constant contact, read the calendar. All of that information is available. Betty Ann consistently posts on different social media platforms exactly what the pickups are, what the zones are. And I really encourage our residents to pay attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you. With that being said, we're going to move towards executive session. I don't believe any formal action will be taken. And that is at 10:59 p.m.
Do we need a motion to move? Motion to move to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, I'd like to close this meeting at 11:17. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.